Welcome, friends. This video is going to be different from the usual style of my monologues, and instead is a tea time talk with a gentleman from Ireland that I had the pleasure and fortune of speaking with. I want to share our conversation and his knowledge and experience with you, because as always, I aim to push the bounds of thought in the hopes that it brings greater clarity and stability to us all. My guest speaker goes by the nickname Gar, and having once served a short sentence in prison in his country, upon release eventually developed a program bringing criminally troubled adult and youth males to his farm, where initially he teaches them career skills to be productive members of society. Off record, he began to realize the need to attend to much more than just career skills, and alongside the job training, serves as a friend and sometimes surrogate father in order to heal emotional wounds of these men that contributed to the run ins with the law. In doing so, for the last decade, he has learned a great deal about what it means to be a healthy man and masculine person from his perspective. For viewers of this channel, the intersection where we meet is in determining if these goals and ideals are benchmarks that can apply irrespective of biological sex, in that a trans man or transmasculine person can also find balance and fulfillment in the principles and practices that he has learned and teaches. I am truly grateful and humbled to have known his epic story and now to be able to share with you. So, without further ado, so welcome to Tea Time, my friends, the place where I muse about my gender transition experience and in the process aim to comfort and inspire others to a greater level of self-awareness. I am Artemis, and this is a little bit different of a video that we're going to be doing today. I have with me to talk about some topics intersecting basically what it means to be a man, what manhood means, with a gentleman from across the pond over in Ireland, is it, Gar?
Yep.
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 Over in Ireland. So he is a particular expert in a way about what it means to be a man and functioning in a healthy way within society as a man or as a masculine individual. And I've got some notes for or some notes rather, what we're going to be talking about or trying to cover in this video. Two major points that I would definitely like to cover. One would be that it seems as though we conflate the terms man and woman with masculine and feminine. So masculine and feminine might be what we would consider as genders and are a collection of characteristics or behaviors. And man and woman are literally just referring to somebody's natal sex. And the two do not have to be, intertwined exclusively. Obviously, you can have feminine men and masculine women. So I think a lot of people will get tripped up when they try to conflate the two terms, man and woman and masculine and feminine. So we're going to try to tease that apart a little bit in this video. And then also cover some social considerations and understandings that transgender people in specific must make when they're transitioning, particularly as it relates to socializing with the gender that they've transitioned to. So in the case of somebody like myself, as a trans masculine or trans man, what it's like to be socialized as a female and then try to integrate into the wider culture of men, usually, or the typical wider culture of men, and expanding more on that. And then let's see my notes here. Largely, this discussion will be about men, trans men, and masculinity, because this is personally my relatable avenue and what our speaker, Gar, has specialty and experience in, which he's going to talk about here in just a minute. The disclaimer that I'm going to give is that just because someone is a masculine woman does not mean that they must transition in order to fit in. Transitioning, at least for people like myself who are not born feeling that they are in the wrong body, it's more of a gradual adoption of individual features that allow us to optimize our individual selves to be the best we can be. I've got a video that's going to be coming out soon called We're Approaching Trans Medicine Backwards that'll talk about that. And I've recently released a video called The Social and Psychological Considerations for Transitioning that you can check out if you'd like after watching this video. So yeah, I got notes further about each of those two topics I'd like to talk about, but I'm going to turn this over to Gar, and he's going to tell you about why the work that he does intersects with this idea of the things that at least transgender people might also need to consider or struggle with in adopting the opposite gender. So take it away.
I've spent all day for quite a long time trying to work out what does it mean to be a man beyond that, which is just being an adult male, you know. I came from a very violent kind of street environment, not that you call it that here. And as I was coming out of prison, I met older men who changed my mind about a lot of things, and met a good woman who certainly helped, like, as much as the older men did. And then just fell into start a program about nearly 10 years ago. And I built a farm because I couldn't get a job with a record for violent crime, specifically here, you know, it'd be a problem. So I built a farm, started selling veg, got into trees, got asked to employ somebody's son who was coming out of jail because he couldn't get a job. And that morphed into now I work with the probation service in my local area, and they handpick up to 8 people at a time to come and work with me cutting down trees by hand, picking trees, cutting them down, and planting trees as part of native wildlife expansion. Because the farm is like organic veg and stuff, they end up working a bit in there. It's technically an employment contract. I'm not a counselor or a therapist or anything like that. And what I do is, over the course of years, show these guys through practice what other people showed me as to how to, in our case, it's quite specific, how to keep the beast in the box and make it work for you, right? Instead of being a problem to society. And how much better it is to be part of the community than it is to be in conflict with the community, locally speaking. And like, it's changed me way more than I have changed anyone else. I realize I'm going in and out of focus there.
Yeah, it's okay. No worries.
Stay still. All right. Yes, so in this, when I heard people originally speaking about trans and gender, I'm in a very male environment, right? So I'm the only one that was curious of this. Everyone was quite black and white. But I started to notice things that sounded right to me, right? When people were speaking about men and women as a gender role, as an expression of your masculinity or femininity, or gender being a way, like how you interact with the world as a performance of your masculinity or femininity. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? However, I am talking about one like tiny, really niche pocket of it, but it helped me explain a lot that I could then kind of go, you know, what we're doing is expressing the way we're expressing our masculinity in an interaction with our environment. Mm-hmm. Part of that environment is people. The other part of it is nature, gravity, or trees, you know. Okay, and I got a bit deeper into the topic, and I discovered then that, like, with trans men, right, I was like, okay, you want to be one of the boys, let's hear what your questions are. Let's hear what's going on, because I'm turning killers into good fathers, right? If that's not making a man out of somebody, I don't know what is.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And as I said, we were talking last week, and that week I was in absolute tears because one of the guys showed up and he's got 5 kids with 5 different women, and he'd left my program and he'd gone off and got a job and got a second job And he marched in with his paperwork to prove he'd met all of his child support payments, including some back pay. And he had enough money to save up that he'd have a car next year, and he was going to show how he would make the car an asset for him as opposed to a liability. This guy couldn't even read and write when I met him.
Wow.
Right? And it's like, it's so simple, right? But to him, he's gone to the moon and back to get to this very simple place. And he is the type of guy that you would really, really cross the road if you saw him on the street, and you should, like.
Yeah, right.
All of your bodily instincts you get around a man like that are real, you know.
Right.
And he just needed a fucking hug, and he needed somebody to tell him, "Well done," when he was trying to do the right thing. And that's what I'm doing. Other than that, we're out cutting down trees for rich people so they can feel special, so they can take a photograph in front of the tree that we turned into the beams for their house. We didn't use any petrol. You know, that's a bit fucking wankery. We're in it for the trees, man. And this pays us then to plant 20 more trees. And the guy that owns the private land that the tree is on gets most of the money. And then there's community money. You know, it's not really a profitable business. The whole thing's jacked up by selling potatoes. But we're in it for the fraternity, and like I'm about 10 years in, and I would say I'm nearly finished being a beginner, you know. And I'm starting to grow and feel like a man through all the right avenues, you know. And it's working on the younger guys. And as I said, because I can connect with these guys because I know what they're talking about, right? I was in the same prison that they were in, and I know exactly what goes on in there. It's not a correctional facility; it's a punishment facility run by gangsters and paramilitaries who are all fighting over the drugs trade. It's fucking sick, right? So they come out demented. And they went in demented anyway, because their parents were just like they were, you know?
Right.
And you know, that's what I keep saying to them. You know, fucking boo-hoo that you got the start that you got, right? You're here now, and you have a chance to break that cycle. You've got kids. What do you want to fucking do? Like, you know? Forget the limitations you think you have. Scrub all of that. Search your heart for what would you actually want if you could get it. Don't tell me money, you know. And then I make them like spend a weekend alone, you know, thinking about it, and get them to come back. And it's all about my mother, my wife, my kids. It's all the relationships they're in, you know. And they've nobody to talk to about it that's on their side. So in this process, we collectively, me and the group, and there's older guys in the group as well, which is a collection of retired men that fix boats and stuff, and they're great, you know. But the focus is actually the younger ones. I'm wondering, is there something I can do about me losing focus other than not moving?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not moving is going to be so hard.
Yeah, I would say maybe don't try to focus on that. Pun intended, I suppose, there, because that's it's not so. Oh.
So this is a trophy. I don't know why it's coming out backwards, but anyway, this is a trophy. It's I mean, yeah, whatever. It's a mug, right? But when somebody gives you this and means it and is proud because they know what the words mean and you got them there and they want to give it to you, and then you win it. Then you win it. And then your body gives you all the euphoria of day-to-day experience of feeling connected between the people around you. That you're at the middle of a web that's never ending, and everybody's in their own middle.
Yep. And that's something that I think is kind of one of those masculine traits, is the, you know, goal and then surmounting the goal. Because from what I understand, feminine people don't really see their role or their interaction in the world as a series of goals to be surmounted. It's more about building the social relationships and, you know, the nurturing, that kind of thing. It's not quite as, set, achieve like it typically is for masculine people. And that's, like you said, something that so often we do not reward enough those masculine people, because perhaps the assumption is that they don't need it. They're tough enough. They don't actually need to hear it. That I've heard so many, women who demonize men as saying, oh, they don't have feelings. Men don't have feelings. And that's precisely, as far as I'm concerned, what's led us partially down this whole toxic masculinity trap, is that men or masculine people are not encouraged to share that they have emotions, especially if there are a lot of women who, on an evolutionary biology level, realize that they don't really like men who complain or whinge or share their feelings on certain levels, because it's not actually what they're looking for a man for. That's, partially on, the woman to realize that a man does need, a masculine person does need those periodic and occasional, like you said, the hugs, the encouragement, the, hey, you're doing a good job, I appreciate you, that kind of stuff. That's the love language of the masculine person. So it's kind of this, somewhat vicious, cycle. Women will complain about the toxic masculinity, but it's, in some cases, it's happening because the men are not being encouraged or allowed to express themselves or become, emotionally validated, I suppose, in that way. So
I can explain that a little bit. Right, we've got a lot of interaction and courting and mixed messaging in a changing world, and nobody's quite sure what to do with it,
right?
And so inevitably in this work we end up speaking about the parents, right? And half of the cure to the parents is actually understanding the grandparents and what they grew up in, right? And here in Europe, we're talking people who were living in rain and bombs, fucking nuts.
Yeah,
these people are bananas.
Yeah,
my grandparents, were involved in the war, in the late war, as very young adults, right? But they were fucking tapped, right?
Yeah,
no way to speak emotionally at all. How they dealt with it was just by not talking to it.
Yep.
And so, I know in myself, I catch me saying stuff to my kids, and I'm like, later going, I'll have to figure out how to undo that, because that's not quite right.
Yeah.
And then I'll think to myself, where did that come from? And then I'm already back at wondering what must have happened to my 8 great grandparents.
Yeah.
That my grandparents ended up like that, my parents ended up like that, and that's how they raised me.
Generational trauma that people were starting to understand that's a very, it's a very real thing and very important to pay attention to.
Well, I think I was born in around 1980, and I think my generation of people are really getting into the counselling and therapy.
Right.
And it's great, and in this, the really hard part of all of that is not blaming your parents for being fucked up.
Yeah.
And the key to not blaming your parents for being fucked up is to realize how fucked up they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. And we have to kind of embrace the opportunity of having a chance to interrupt this and do something with it before another war kicks off.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever's coming next in the disaster books is coming. Right. And we've got this little chance to make as much headway as we can, because in emergencies, all of this philosophical shit goes out the window. Right?
So yeah, absolutely.
And we get to tomorrow, and then we worry about tomorrow until we get to be philosophers again.
Yeah.
And so, it takes a long enough of peace to get a generation that can even fucking think calmly.
Yeah.
Right? If I even said to my father, my father got very good as he got older, but much older. If I said to him, when he was my age even, you know, how do you feel about that? He would actually get angry at the thought of even trying to engage with how he felt.
A defense mechanism. Absolutely. That's what anger often is a self-defense mechanism.
So like, we can describe the problem that we all face, right? But we can't point the fingers at anybody, right? Because it's everybody's fault and nobody's fault as a result. And when you start blaming backwards, so you go all the way back to when we were what? Not even human. How far back?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
However, here we are in the new world, right? There is very masculine women, right? Which is a loaded phrase, right? When I say that, we understand it, but there's actually frills in the difference, frills in the details that make it hard to parse out what to do about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I've found myself, since we started engaging, and since we started talking, which is about a year now, keeping coming back to how much of this is my biology and how much of it is my personality, right? Going over the things that I do with my guys, you know, right? And I get stopped out at it being the all male fraternity means something, right? That I haven't quite got into words, but men behave very differently when it's only men, right? And the presence of a woman shuts them down, right? And it's this attunement to how unattractive, very emotional men are to most women, right? Even though that's a misunderstanding, because it's not that, like, men have to be unemotional on the spot. So whatever comes up, you got to deal with it, right? There's no point in crying and looking for someone else to fix the problem.
Right.
You can't actually have an emotional response so strong to an emergency that you can't deal with it. So we've got all of these little chemical things that knock off, and the brain turns upside down, and all of a sudden it's like, my chance to be a hero is here. Right? And you go fucking running into a burning building to save a cat or some shit and die, you know?
Yeah.
Right? But it was all worthwhile because it meant something outside of yourself. Right? I have met women that seem to have that instinct. You know?
Yeah.
I have met women that feel like that, and they're going around looking for their opportunity to be a hero as well, you know? And it's like, but not all men feel that way, right? There's plenty of men will be the first guy over the hill as soon as the trouble happens, right? And you know, not that it's a feminine thing to run away, right? That's a really bad description. It's just using the base analogy, you know.
I mean, but honestly, I think that's maybe a fair thing to say. If you want to talk about women being generally the physically less, generally, this is a dangerous thing to say in this new age of feminism, to say that a woman is generally less physically capable than a man, even though it's objectively, provably true. I think that's a fair thing to potentially call feminine. To call a feminine trait is rather a flight response than it is than to have a fight response. That it would potentially be more. You could consider it a masculine trait to fight and a feminine trait to flight or even freeze. That it's associated typically, you know, masculine or feminine. It really doesn't matter. It's just in a generalized category of traits. It's neither good nor bad, which is something that people also tend to get into this fight about, that, you know, oh, you know, because women are weaker, it's somehow bad. No, there's always these emotional connotations that people make with these words. They want to attach it because they're in some ways projecting their sense of insecurity with it, rather than being at peace with their strengths and their weaknesses. So no, I wouldn't say that it's unfair to characterize a flight response as being probably a feminine trait.
And you see, I wonder about this, you know, because also I know men that have this instinct, and in the sense of, in the moment, they're ready, they're willing to deal with whatever happens, regardless of risk for the group. You know, it wouldn't necessarily have to be women and children. Like the queue of people saying, I'll take care of this sometimes when there's an issue is just fucking stupid. You know, everybody's saying, stand back, I know. Right. So, however, some men have also expressed, when given the space, that they reject the assumption and responsibility, and sometimes they just want fucking somebody else to deal with it, and they'll stand and clap.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever it is actually quite personal to people's lives. I mean, whatever it means in your own daily life, where situations pop up and you have to embrace the masculine in order to deal with it. Whether you're a woman or a man, you know.
Right.
And so I found, like, as I came on board of this, and I thought there might be something for me to learn, and maybe I've got something in my world you can learn from, really came from the fact that, like, if I'm honest, I have to be kind of, like, philosophically, if I have to be honest with myself, I can't keep saying it's only male bodies I'm talking about, like, because what I'm doing is actually about personality types more than anything else, and whether or not how you react to your environment and how you react to other people, how that makes you feel, and if you can master it, all right, and if you can, right. So, for example, you can get a very similar rush, right? When somebody loses their temper, it's a sense of freedom. Right. And when I say to some men, and I open myself about it, and I say that sometimes I was never looking for trouble, and I was always worried about getting hurt, right? But when it was on, in a physical conflict, whatever action I decided now it's on, right, I felt so free, right? Nothing else mattered. There was just me here, this, now, and it was just
in the moment.
All responsibilities of the outer world are gone.
Yeah.
Anybody else's pains, or or if somebody was upset with me, or if I was worried about my mother, it just vanishes.
Sure.
And you get this enormous burst of adrenaline, and you feel like a beast and alive. And then it's like, then the punches don't even hurt. You're like, hit me.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And when I say that to guys, right, some of them, it upsets them, right, because they're not like that, and they know other people are, and they're actually terrified.
Yeah.
Right? Other guys get a fucking erection.
Yeah.
Right? If you can describe it animately enough, if I really spend 5 minutes building that.
Yeah.
And then with those people, I explain to them that you can get that same feeling at 20% dose nearly all the time, right? If you stand guard over good people, right? And you never, ever, ever, ever let the beast out of the box. You just bark now.
Yeah, right.
If you let the beast out of the box and your kids or your wife see you berserk, you might never come back from that.
Right.
In their eyes.
Yeah.
Right. To see somebody covered in blood, wailing Swiss, laughing and looking like they're enjoying it is a crime in its own. I mean, you should be done for traumatizing the people.
Traumatizing, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yep. But these people exist, and I'm one of them. And it is a pain. It's a way of coping. It's a pain mechanism, and it's it's Peter Pan. I'm no longer participating anything else, only this. And it's fucking thrilling, and it's amazing. It's like sex. It's like, I suppose, in that regard.
Right. Yeah.
You can get lost in sex and everything goes away.
Right. Yep. For a lot of people, then that's part of the addiction, like you said, for a number of reasons. But, there's a lot there that what you've just said. I mean, first of all, repurposing the mercenary or reintegrating the soldier back into citizenship essentially is exactly what you're talking about. Finding a place in society for these guys, because they don't just go away and you can't just, kill them all off, and they can be useful. They just have to be prepared. They have to have the right set of skills to be able to integrate that into a new set of work that's not destructive for society. And as you said, it's not all men, certainly, and it's not necessarily attached to sex. Like you said, it's not necessarily about the male body. It's about what you're calling personas, and those personas can be, I guess, some personas can be learned from baggage, like the woman that goes around wanting to rescue, like you said, could be something that's from childhood baggage, where she feels that way because she's always been the rescuer. So she gets a sense of, self from that. And until she works through any of that baggage in therapy, she might continue to go around to her detriment, putting herself out there and, depleting her own resources, because that's how she copes with life and how she gets her sense of self. But also, if it's not personas that can change with your experiences in life, and whether or not you've had therapy to unravel a lot of the crap that you had beforehand, like you said, coming from generational trauma, it's character types, character archetypes, I guess, that are more or less, in my mind, ingrained within your genetic material, like the warrior gene, for example. Men or women can have that. It just happens to be more common in men for obvious reasons, I think. But like you said, it doesn't have to be tied exclusively to male biological sex. It can be just a genetic character trait that, like for me, as far as I can tell, what I call my brain operating more in the masculine view of things, I can see the appeal of that whole berserker concept of just unleashing the beast, as you've said. It's not something that I've ever actually done in my life, but I have a very distinct feeling that if the time ever were to come, I would have no problem doing that and not looking back. And that's not something that a lot of people want to admit. I know Peterson has talked about people having to reconcile with the beast within. Jung talked about, the beast within, the shadow side. And if you fail to integrate that into your conscious psyche, you will fall victim to it in the times when it controls you rather than you controlling it. And it's Peterson talks about it in the sense of the Holocaust, where if you think that you are somebody that never could have a contributed to the atrocities that happened, that if you had been in those shoes, there's no way that you could have, you really probably don't know yourself well enough to be able to say that, because chances are you would have in some way, shape, or form, whether you were, coerced into it for fear of your life, or to some degree you actually believed the propaganda that that particular political party was pushing at the time. Either way, I think I agree with Peterson in the sense that it's to your detriment if you have that sort of character trait within you, or like the men under your tutelage, that if you don't take care of it, it will take care of you. And it's a kind of a daily struggle sometimes to keep that beast under control. But like you said, for these men, you can teach them to redirect that life force, that energy, that sense of just, feeling alive and fulfilled into societally productive ways. They just have to be shown it, because it's obviously not the default setting. They're operating from potentially a very primitive set of skills and tools and mindsets that are there from the beginning of human evolution, but it doesn't translate well, like you said, into society today, where we have to help them along. And that's really not just them, but really anybody for whatever skill set they have. It takes some time to figure out where and how that fits into this constantly evolving culture and society. So,
well, we need each other, you know. I mean, we need help, or we need connections between the generations. And a lot of what I do is bringing older men and middle-aged men and younger men together, and being so honest about myself and my own feelings, and learning to speak emotionally. And I'm getting better at it. I'm really I'm probably about as good as a 17-year-old girl, you know what I mean?
yeah, it's taken a lot, and then a disgusting amount of work for myself too. I might seem well articulated and put together, and can talk about emotions and whatnot, but that, let me tell you, was not something I was good at. Zero. Had no skills with that whatsoever. I was a compartmentalizing, very brute force kind of person. So.
And so I discovered that men didn't have a safe place to speak, which is like, a safe place? Like any of us would need a safe place. But in order to get people to speak about how they really feel, like about the big things, about the relationships with their parents, and about the relationships with their partners, I had to make a safe space. And I made a safe space by showing, being able to show, nearly everybody that needs help wants to fight with me, right?
Yeah, right.
So
yeah,
we made a safe place for that to happen,
Mhm.
And I get horrible abuse from everybody, but nobody thinks a good thing that we're out there boxing each other, but it works. It really, really works.
Right.
I've got some stuff I need to get into his head, and it's for his benefit and for everybody that lives here.
All right. Yeah.
We all need this to work.
Yeah. Right.
And it does work. I have great fun with it. I do. It's it's as much for me as it is for anyone else. I really do.
Right. Yeah. That's, to me, that in my head, I kind of see you because I used to do dog training for a period of time, and I was perfectly willing to work with dogs that put off most people because of their aggression or what have you. And I learned an amazing amount of not just how to do that, but also, is it actually even worth it, in that situation, and be able to parse the nuance there. But that's kind of how I see you, is the guy that comes in willing to work with that, snarling beast in the corner, and, basically coerce it into a place where it no longer feels like it needs to be that way. Because not all dogs are reacting that way just because of straight out aggression. Really, that's something within the domestic dog that's increasingly rare, to have a truly aggressive dog that just does not fit within any societal situation with humans whatsoever. Often it's rooted in some kind of fear. And if you give them a place to, relinquish that and build some sense of trust, it's a totally different animal at that point. So that's how I see your work, basically.
So I'm gonna end up talking about my work, and I'm gonna struggle to keep bringing back to how this is relevant to your work.
I know, yeah, we're kind of we keep wandering left of center, right of center, and I appreciate you trying to keep that in the center, but we'll get there. It's fine.
That's why tonight was probably better than yesterday.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I had an initiation ceremony for somebody, for a new fella that was with us for a few months, and I'm going to commit him to 2 years. Right, I think there's something in this for you. So remind me to come back to it, how it's relevant. And so, from his perspective, obviously I know what's going on, right? So I tell him, it's just me and him. He kind of knows me a bit now, trusts me a bit more. And I say, we're going swimming in the lake together, right? And I'm like, I'm going in naked. You don't have to. Right?
Okay.
And so, I'm driving him out there. I don't really phrase it as a question. That's what we're doing at work today, you know. And we get to the lake, and I kind of say to him that, like, there's probably or possibly a shelf that we're going to walk out to, and then we're going to drop off and we're going to start swimming. Right. So we start walking out into the lake, and it's freezing. Like, I mean, like, it takes a lot of mental effort, and we're both tripping.
Yeah. Right.
And we're walking and walking and walking, right? And we get to about waist high, you know. And he's like, "Fuck, it's shallow, isn't it? That kind of looked like it was going to be deep, you know." And I'm like, "Look, hold on to my hand, because if you fall over, you're going to need help getting back up. So let me take your hand while it gets deeper." Right. And so now we're holding hands, walking in freezing water, right? And then, like, in front of us, there's an island, but from the shore, it looks really far away. In reality, it's less than a mile, right? And so, like, it doesn't get any deeper than this. Like, it only comes up to, like, my belly button, you know? And then we're coming out again, and he's like, "The fuck is this? I thought we were going swimming." I'm like, no, I changed your plan. We're going to a party. You know?
Oh no.
On the island, the rest of the gang are there, and, like, we have a beer and we fuck off. Right? We don't really do much, right? And then, but I traveled back with him, you know. And I said to him, "I'm never gonna ask you to do something I haven't done that I don't think works. I'm always going to be with you. I'm not always going to tell you what's coming up. The end is always a party." And I said, "Along the way, I have to trust you as much as you trust me. And those big holes in the ground do exist. They are in the lake, but we didn't walk into it. Right? The actual chances of falling in any of the big holes is quite small. Right? That's the lesson." And I think when older men validated me for being a good man and allowed me to speak emotionally with them, that's when I started being a man. Right?
Right.
And I think there's a part, like, I'm not sure if women need an older woman to confirm that they're women. Right? If men don't get that, there's a suffering in it, and they yearn for it. You know, I mean, I've been in, like, group therapy, hugging somebody who's 6'5", and, like, I can barely meet my hands behind his back, and he's, like, wrapping my head. And he's crying because all he wanted was his father to tell him, "Well done."
Yeah.
And he's in so much fucking pain, like how somebody would describe losing their child.
Yes.
Right? And so in that, if you're pursuing what it feels like to be a man, there is a pain there that can only be taken away by older men that you respect, that understand you, right? And so that when they say that, it means something to you. You know, like fucking Henry down the shop saying, "Well done," doesn't mean anything, right? And so on your journey of Transmen, I think it could be useful to some people if you identify this need of approval of other men in a plutonic, fraternitistic kind of way.
Sure.
To seek it from somebody about 20 years older than you. Because they're not so old that they don't understand you. You know? And that somebody is performing their own masculinity in a way that if they respect you, it means something. if you know what I mean. Like, and then they'll give you bars, and you can trust that they're not just dicking with you.
Yeah.
You know, just like, wonder what we can get them to do today.
Yeah. Right.
You know, but that somebody that says, you know, look, there's some responsibilities in your life you're not upholding. There's more you can give. You know, and then when you give it, and you know, I was on the phone to a guy the other day, and his celebration of the week was he hadn't smoked weed all weekend. You know,
Hey, no.
yeah, like, who are you going to celebrate that with? But you know, I know him well enough to know how much that means to him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know, and how difficult that was, right?
Sure.
And then me saying, like, that's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, celebrate it would be going through for a run. You know. And while you're running, think about why running might be something you do to celebrate. You know, think about it. You know, I don't know if you went for a run. Probably not. You know?
Yeah, wouldn't be my first choice, but I mean, to each his own.
Right. So this man is an island stuff. Like, isn't working.
Right.
And when we say, like, a man is made by the women and the men around him,
mm-hmm.
and his relationship to them, and they set the parameters of what responsibilities you have, I suppose. But the key word there is you've got the guns, you're emotionally stable, kind of, you know, you've all of these brain systems, hormone systems, whatever the fuck is going on inside of us. You can turn it on, find a good way to turn it on and feel great about yourself.
Yeah. Right.
And then don't be ashamed of it either, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's you know, like, I see a lot of dads trying to be dads and struggling with it and feeling like they're supposed to be good at it because they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Something you gotta learn, you know. Like, I had to learn how to have fun playing with my kids. It took me fucking ages. It was painful.
Yeah.
I was sitting in for just being there, and you all got to go through that. And like, I didn't have a fucking dad's group where I go down and say, fucking hell, how do you stomach like these fucking 3-year-olds for longer than 5 minutes? Like, I can't.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And whereas there's like this endless support for women, to the point it's actually not supportive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Like, because, like, as I say, because I know somebody whose greatest achievement this decade was not smoking weed all weekend, right? That can't be the bar for everyone, right? Yeah. And so when you're going around fucking clapping back, if he put that on Twitter and got 10,000 likes, it'd be terrible for him. You know?
Yeah.
He needs to, well fucking done. Celebrate that with a run. Step 1, step 2's coming. Yeah. You know, take your clap on the back. Now fucking next.
Yeah, right. Don't stall. Yeah.
No, but it does need to be acknowledged as the step that it is, you know. And like, in that conversation, I related that to other struggles he's having and how it's a marker of improvement. Yeah. I made sure he went away with a good sense of self-esteem from it. Mm-hmm. And then told him it's not fucking good enough. Keep pushing.
Yeah, right. That find the good cop, bad cop kind of thing, the finding balance in what's the appropriate amount of reward, and then finding a way to motivate for more. That's it's tricky.
I'm going to try to tie that again to the trans masculine.
Sure, I bet it.
In your transition, set yourself targets that you can achieve. Mm-hmm. Celebrate them. Don't ever see your transformation into manhood as something that is ever completed. Like,
right, of course.
Right. There's 80-year-olds that are still working on themselves. You know, And there's some of the and because they've been doing it for 20 years since they were 60, they're actually some of the most well put together people.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting to hear what to think of somebody who actually starts this stuff like really young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goes through life with a really wide open mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting to see, right? But in this journey, set yourself tasks, or even better, get someone else to do it. I mean, what's that porn star fella who's always getting in trouble? He's a trans porn star.
Yeah, Buck Angel.
Yeah. Okay. Say it again.
Buck Angel.
Yes. Yeah. Like, he calls himself Papa Trans, is it?
Honestly, I don't keep up with him very much. You could be right. But yeah, there's a whole lot there I don't bother with.
Catch him on the drama ring.
Yeah.
You know, in Ireland, I get a lot of hassle off the turfs, as you might imagine.
Right.
And they have a pop at him a lot. Yet he seems to be on their side on quite most of their stuff. Anyway, like, he's in a great position to actually start the gatekeeping, right?
Yeah.
And he's in a great position to start the fraternity,
mm-hmm.
right? Because, like, all right, not everybody's going to automatically respect him,
mm-hmm.
but I bet if you spent an hour in a room with that guy, you would respect him afterwards.
It's possible. I haven't listened to him talk very much at all, to be totally honest with you. I don't know too many transgender people in the spotlight, as in know them, as in have followed much of what they've had to say or any of their stories. I have kind of followed a little bit more of Schopenhauer's philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher, in the sense that I read as much as I need to on, factual literature to kind of get a scientific understanding of things. And then as far as developing my own ideas, I try not to take in too much from the outside world, because as Schopenhauer says, it can prevent you from having any of your own, unique insights and ideas, because you take on more of what you're reading. So that being said, I'll be totally honest with you. I sort of keep my head under a rock, buried in the sand, when it comes to cultural influences like that. So.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that from the perspective of, I don't even really know what his opinions are strongly, except that I've noticed nobody's particularly on board with him from either of the more extreme sides of the communities he gets in between.
Mm-hmm.
However, like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what needs to be starting to build. I mean, that's what I'm trying to start to build.
Mm-hmm.
I have men that are older than me that keep me straight.
Mm-hmm.
Some have experiences similar to mine.
Mm-hmm.
Others have experiences kind of parallel to it.
Yeah.
A lot of them are very religious. The religious language works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes, we're all using religious language, whether we know it or not.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I can speak in a very Christian framing of things with people. And it's an effective communication, right? I was trying my hardest to explain something about what I was describing as 3 sets of persona and the personality. I was making an awful mess of it with you last week, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I had a Zoom session with a Swedish friend who's an incredible character, and a massive golden beard as well.
Nice.
I wouldn't want it. It looks like it needs help, like a hairdo,
Yeah. Yeah. No, trust me, this ridiculous. I mean, granted, yes, I have ovaries, but when it comes in, it's red or blonde, like all this. Yeah, I know. It's Cheeto dust. I mean, it might as well be Cheeto dust.
I'm only joking.
But yeah, I mean, I've been on T for 3 years now, and there are trans guys who have been on T for a year, and they've already got, the chin strap thing going on. But I'm red red blonde, fair, super duper Scandinavian look. So no, I'm never going to have that nice, full, lush, darker facial hair. It's just, it doesn't run in my genetics, unfortunately. But yeah, it always does look like it needs help because it's patchy. and actually funny, I'll take a real short side story on this. If you look at, because my background is in biology and anthropology, so animal studies, animal behavior and human primate behavior, but and physical anatomy. But when you look at lions, African lions, there was a very clear study published that shows that female lions prefer males with darker manes, and they generally tend to be much thicker than the ones that are more light colored and blonde. They tend to be a lot thinner and patchier, and it's because the darker manes are more indicative of a healthier specimen. And I think that really, I'm sad to say, that really does translate to men, because if you look at the blonde beards and the red strawberry colored, it's never as thick often as the darker beards. But anyway, that aside,
it's a blessing and a curse.
Sure.
So it goes with that,
Right. Yep. Yep. This is true. You're right. This is true.
Yeah, I had to shave my head by 25. There wasn't enough for it to look.
Wow.
You could see through it by the time I was 25.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the cue ball look is very becoming on you. You can pull it off just fine. So.
I think anything is just how you carry it. If you.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I'll come back to the Swedish fella, but another funny interlude. I did make a drunken promise one time that if I ever became famous enough to influence fashion, that I would start wearing wigs. That if I got onto Irish TV, if I got onto the Late Show or something, I'd go on in a wig, and then if I was on the news, I'd go on in a different wig until somebody pulled me up on it. And my response was going to be that I think that because women are allowed this, I should be allowed it too.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense to me.
What's wrong? I mean, everybody knows I'm wearing a wig.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding that I'm wearing a wig. I want this today. You'd accept it if I wore a hat.
Accessorize, yeah, the male version of accessories.
Yeah. But yeah, that was it. That came from a bet in the pub.
So there was something that I wanted to, what you've been talking about here, as far as it relates to trans men, transmasculine people, your particular niche is working with a particular character subset of masculinity, or maybe of male biology, I could definitely say, because like you said, not all men need that, or end up in prison or have those certain tendencies to be more violent or aggressive, or I don't know, pick some other descriptive word for that, but that it's like you said, it's more of a persona type. And for me, being a transmasculine person, clearly I don't fit the full array of different personas that you can get with transmasculine people. So there was somebody recently on my channel who brought up a scenario, which this kind of can segue into the next topic if we remember to take it after you finish saying what you were going to say. But this segues into the being, I guess, indoctrinated into a certain male culture. So this trans man was saying that in his work environment, it was a lot of males and a lot of what you call dick swinging going on, basically ribbing each other and trying to kind of toughen one another up, and that's just part of the culture amongst those men. And this trans man was saying that it was kind of hurtful to him that these men were misgendering him on purpose. So they were calling him, she all the time. And he said that he felt, really kind of attacked. And I could totally understand if socialized as a female, why you would see that and feel pretty attacked or threatened by it. And they were contemplating, potentially just having to, that's just their reality now, that they're just going to have to saddle up and deal with it. And I thought for a minute, technically, no, he doesn't have to saddle up and deal with it and integrate into that, particular culture if he doesn't want to, because there's plenty of men who don't want to participate in the dick swinging and the, ragging on one another. It's just not their cup of tea. They don't actually, that's not play for them. Yeah. And so I think I might have to maybe do a video about that at some point here very soon to discuss the fact that, while that is a typical, male kind of culture, that as a trans man or transmasculine person, that doesn't mean that you have to integrate yourself into that, that manosphere, that cultural subset of men. There are other subsets of men that don't do that at all. And, for me, I grew up in a military family, and not that, I was subjected terribly much to any of my dad's, military buddies, but it was something that I still saw on the periphery, and still something that myself, I can dish it and take it. And it's fun for me. I don't take it personally at all. Some people might want to label that toxic masculinity, that you're picking and ragging on each other. But, as we talked about before, if you don't try to use that in other areas where it's not welcome as a form of play or communication, it's completely fine. And I don't think that that's toxic masculinity, because it's a way that these men just blow off steam, they relate. And from an evolutionary biology standpoint, it's a toughening up sort of practice for men who, thousands of years ago, in a society not so abundant as it is today, would need to toughen one another up to deal with the day-to-day survival, struggles. And doing that to some degree is like, small predator animals, when they're in the litter, they're, play fighting with one another, learning the skills to survive. It's the same thing. It's just today it doesn't translate very well. And especially not when men try to use it on people who don't appreciate it. That's when it'll get labeled toxic masculinity really quickly. Or if you allow that type of behavior not to, or to prohibit you from being in touch with your actual emotions. Like you said, men need to be able to actually be vulnerable and not, shut up, pussy kind of thing. You just take it, like there needs to be a point where you go, no, bro, I actually do need to talk about this for just a minute, like set that aside. If you can learn to do that, switch it up. I think that's where the sweet spot is. But anyway.
Yeah. That last bit got me.
Oh, good.
I do encourage the bottling up of emotions and saving them for later.
Yeah.
And finding somewhere safe to explore them.
Right.
They're alone or not. Like if you need help, great. Like when my father died, Irish funerals take days, like 4 days of the funeral. When my father died, right, there was an expectation that I would be crying as a symbolism of my personal development. And I'm like, loads of people ask me, it's okay to cry if you want to cry, And I said that to my nephew, actually, when he was younger, a few times. It's okay to cry. And I was like, if you want to come with me, so it's just me and you, that's okay too. Right. But in that, until it was finished, all the proceedings were finished, and until I had made sure everybody else was all right, to whatever that meant, and a lot of legal stuff happens. Right. It was then I kind of made the time, took a break, and then I started to process.
Right.
And the honest answer to all of the people, mostly women, that were saying to me, you know, it's okay to cry. It might actually be a good demonstration to the others, you know, that they would feel safe to cry if you cry. And it was like, well, I don't feel safe to cry. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, in the middle of the funeral here, there's stuff going on. I have to keep an eye on everything, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm not an emotional creature and I'm not experiencing something. And I'm like, if you see me lost in thought, it's like I'm trying to zone into what's going on here inside me, you know? Like, but like the need that for me to cry in front of you so that you can see that I can cry is like, fuck off.
Sure.
And so if somebody actually said to me, actually, I think we need to stop and we need to work on this, I would be like, you need to work on yourself somewhere fucking else and come back to me when you're ready. See ya.
Yeah.
Right. And like, Ireland's a bit of a tougher place emotionally in that regard. Like, people aren't there yet. Right. There's not a lot of emotional speak in public about anybody. And we're collectively as a nation just finding out what really happened in a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And then we're all going, oh crap, my grandparents went to that school.
Yeah.
Right. So like we're, you know, we tread slowly and carefully. Humor is so important, right? So humor starts with being able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
You know? And if you can find the funny side in yourself, it kind of lets you know what other people see in you. You know? And you can gain a lot of respect from other people by being able to laugh at yourself. Like if you got a job in a mechanics workshop with 4 other guys and you were passing it, you know, and it's not going to come up, like, you know, you're just going to work. And they decided to nickname you Little Artie. You'd be fucking stuck with that until you earned a new nickname. There's no honorable way out of that.
No.
Like, you can't insist that they call you fucking anything.
No.
Because if you, because like, there's a tiny chance if you don't react, it'll fade away and they'll forget, right? It might work, right? But if you show it hurts, that's the game.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the therapy that these men are offering you.
Yeah.
Get over yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to make it really hard.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, they will have strengthened you. They will now trust you. You will trust them. You will know more about them because you'll hear them doing it to each other.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They will know more about you. And you have a bond. And it's done in humor. Like, you know? That's the way we do it. It's like, you know, and then you get some fucking school teacher coming in going, don't make anybody feel bad. It was like, fuck off, you basic bitch, you know nothing about
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's that whole I guess demonizing certain behaviors that are legitimate and necessary outlets for needs that people have. You know, right now the biggest thing is, you know, men's sexual needs, that, you know, here in the United States, God forbid that you know, compliment a woman on her looks, or, you know, are caught ogling her from behind, or, you know, whatever, that you're not even allowed to have that because it's some kind of violation to her. And I don't, that's demonizing the thing that, you know,
don't look at my arse in these yoga pants.
Yeah, right. That kind of motivates guys. I mean, obviously it's a huge problem if men cross the line into, you know, touching, or, you know, some kind of unwanted interaction in that way. But to take away the thing that, you know, motivates them from a distance, that's really, it's just hardwired in there, is just asking for, you know, that pent up resentment to just build and build and build and build, and it'll come out in some way, you know. As far as I'm concerned, that's where the incel and MGTOW and, you know, some of these other movements, people who are unhealthy within those movements, are coming from. And it's just it's not good, man. It's like, don't be who you are because that's bad, it just doesn't work,
And this is it takes 5 minutes to like join a local football, whatever the sport is in your area. You don't have to be good, right?
Yep.
Join the team, embrace the experience. You're all working together towards a common goal. You're all trying to help each other improve individually.
Yep.
And all of that shit goes away,
Yeah.
It's like then collectively on a Saturday night, you're out with 15 or so guys, or girls, or whatever, right? You're in a group that's pre-organized. You don't experience any of that nonsense, right? Like the guys that get singled out and made a fool of for looking at somebody's arse, like, take your fucking whooping, you made a mistake, right? Yeah, she's a stupid fucking whatever for doing it. And yeah, all the people on Twitter going, because they see their creepy guy at work and they think that's him, or however they project onto that.
Right.
And they're all going, yeah, you. Like, to the men that happens to, right? Right, here's your task. Put one fucking finger up, then put the other one up, and then fucking wave them around. Right? Go on, just try it. Stick one out the window, quick, and pull it back in, and see how that feels. Do a drive-by.
Yeah, stop giving a damn about the people that want to micromanage you on that level.
And like, this is where everybody needs to tap into their beast, whether it's a fucking hamster or a dragon you've got in there.
Right.
Yep. And it's like, if you're looking at that and you're thinking, either like if you're a witness to it, right? Or let's say your girlfriend or your wife is one of these people that's going, look at that fucking incel, right? Why are you allowing this to continue?
Right.
Like, turn around to them and say, shut the fuck up. Who asked you? Yeah. Who asked you? If I run past you with a fucking flashing light and you look at it and I get to go, fuck you.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. That's what a good relationship is for, in the sense that you should be able to be a mirror to one another and point out, hey, that's not cool. And let's try to be a better person, shall we? And not because you have your balls in your girlfriend's purse, or, vice versa. He's got, you locked up in his wallet or something, it's that's not a healthy relationship.
And this is it. So it's like, I'm terrible for it. Like, I'd be daydreaming at the bank while I'm waking, and I wake up and I'm staring at someone's fucking arse.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's not always women either. It's just the fucking shape of an arse draws the
yeah. Yep.
And it's like, how do you rock it after that? If somebody makes a scene or whatever, I mean, it doesn't really happen very much anymore. But at one time, if a woman, and it has happened a few times, what are you staring at? I would always say, like, I'm only looking at you because you're beautiful.
The truth, yeah.
Right. Or like, you were looking at me, I was looking at you, I thought we had a moment.
Right.
So, and it's like, humor can diffuse it,
Sure.
Like, and if a woman was to spin around and say, you're looking at my arse, I go, oh, it's a woman.
Right, yeah. That could get you into more trouble, but I absolutely see your point.
So if you are kind of going out there every day, say, like, if you're in university or something, and this is actually like a real problem for you, like, prepare yourself with how you would like to respond to the situations you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right. And then give yourself the elbow space to try them out and it not work. Right? And I
Sure.
go, shit, oh, cringe.
Failure. Yeah. Abort mission.
Right? But firing back and seeing how few people who are confrontational, right, actually depend on you withering in the sunlight.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would nearly say, like, learn a 3-second dance move. And if for some reason, whatever the cringe is, everybody ends up looking at you, do your dance move.
You're right. Yeah. Right.
Practice it. Make sure it's good.
Yeah. Diffuse the tension with comedy. It's probably one of the better ways to go.
And walk away.
Yeah.
Right. Hang on a second.
I'm gonna say we're gonna pause. Probably a good idea to pause for just a minute. Dog over here is giving me cues that he's got to use the restroom, and I probably should too. It's been about an hour, so take a quick
5-minute interval.
You got it. 5 minutes. Yep. So we're back now after our little intermission. So yeah, have at it. All
right. So I've been looking at the top. I think some trans men YouTubers to try to get a feel for what young trans men who are thinking about it or are getting exposed to. And I saw some funny fucking stuff, man.
Yeah.
And that had me laughing out loud that this is the perspective of a young female.
Yeah. Yep. So this is where it gets, I think, interesting for your perspective as, a lived reality biological male to try to then dissect what it is that trans men, young trans men anyway, are latching onto potentially as reasons for, or, explaining their experience, in terms that they understand, but might not at all be where you're coming from either. So yes, please do.
All right. Toilets.
Yeah.
From me to you, nobody's fucking interested in what you're doing in the toilet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
However, right, okay, let me demystify this. Men go into the toilet and it's impolite to interfere with each other except for to get about the room, right?
Yeah.
And as you might have noticed, if there is a way for us to leave space between us, we will.
Mm-hmm.
Most men look up because when you look down at your own, you have the peripheral vision of everybody else's crotch.
Gotcha.
However, I don't think in my entire life I've ever seen another man's penis in a toilet. The way that you hold your penis means that unless it's like a foot long, and,
yeah, unrolling it out like a red carpet. Yeah.
Right, this is it. I mean, for everyday purposes, it's just like, there's very little going on there, right? So, right, there's lots of men for lots of reasons of all ages that will only use a cubicle. All right, we don't discuss it generally, right? I'm sure it's happened because it's in my periphery, but I can't remember an individual instance of it. But I'm aware of like going into the bathroom with another man I'm in company with, and we both go to the bathroom at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And him waiting for a stall or going into a stall and me doing what I'm doing, and I leave and then he comes back later, and it doesn't register as anything at all. Like it doesn't, it's just normal activity that somebody's waiting for a stall for some reason,
Right.
Even if it's a case of I have never witnessed them doing anything else, and for some bizarre reason we end up in the toilet together every day because that's our break, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And I noticed that Peter is always waiting for a stall, right? The list of things that could cause that are so long, it doesn't bear even thinking about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is. I didn't think about that.
And it would actually be really low on my list to kind of go, I wonder if he not got a penis.
Right.
Never happened.
Yeah. And might even think that it was a tragic accident and certainly not due to transgenderism, right? Yeah, that's not something you're going to ask about.
Right. He might have a rash that he wants to inspect. So, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's going to ask. Nobody's going to be interested. It's not going to register in anybody's day who they met in the toilet and what else they were up to.
Right.
At the urinal, I understand that standing up to pee is quite uniquely male, right?
Yes.
And might be something like, as a trans man, you're like, I can't fucking do that. Right? I can see the appeal.
Yeah.
Right. So, right, two things. One, there is a way you can do it without a penis.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
two, right, what's going on, right? What's in the other men's heads, right? Men's underwear, very few of men's underwear selections include any kind of hole to get your dick out of in the underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it's a closed boxer brief or some kind of an underpants, knickers type, panties type thing. So it's very common for men to spend quite a while doing this, mucking with their underwear, getting their dick in a position that they're not going to piss on their pants and they're going to get it like out and away from them. Right? If it's fucking cold outside, I swear to God, you'd swear they were like hunting for treasure. Ready to go.
Right.
And then like trying to push the pants back so the
Yeah.
peanut can stick out. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Some guys actually undo all of their trousers and pull them all the way down to
All
their
the way
ankles. And I'm like, that's not hygienic, man. It's a guaranteed way to get splash back into your pants. Nonetheless, they do it.
Yeah.
Right? I have never had a conversation, even in prison, with another man about this particular activity of how long it takes them to ready for launch, right? Right? But when I started thinking about it, right, there's fucking everything going on.
Yeah.
Nobody's thinking about it. Everybody's thinking about their own dick, right?
Right. Yeah.
The only thing that you would really kind of like, if somebody was touching off you or you're trying to piss, you're like, okay, we need more space. Do you know?
Yeah.
Like, can you fucking pull your elbow in?
Yeah. All right.
That might happen like at music festivals or something. That there might be discussion around like wanting the barest of half an inch of personal space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? On top of that, lots of men go through patches or like long patches and recurring patches where they can't let go around other people. They can't release the valve.
Sure. Yeah. Performance anxiety. I've heard it called.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Just for weight. Right? I had it myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There's performance anxiety in other ways, but it can apply to peeing. Yes.
I was mid-20s, I was a grand old peer up until a certain point. And there was an occasion where it really upset me because I was at a rugby game in a stadium with 80,000 people with like a very highly organized military queue of men disloading. Nobody was fucking about, right? You got to wave your hands under the tap and flick them under the hand dryer and fuck off.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we all got to pee.
Yeah, no lollygagging. Yeah.
And I couldn't fucking open the valve, and I went on this spiral in my mind.
Oh no.
Oh God. And I was bursting for a piss. And so I had to leave because my time was up. This was definitely an occasion when like time was an issue.
Yeah.
And my allotted time was becoming a frustration for the queue of men staring at me.
Wow.
Or at least that's how it felt.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that it was more valid in that circumstance than like day to day.
Yeah.
And so I ended up walking off and finding a stock cupboard somewhere and pissing in the corner. Right?
Yeah.
Because I was going to wet myself when I went back to the...
Yeah, sure. Any port in a storm.
Yeah. But it just had to be somewhere where there wasn't anybody else. So, right. So when you're in a toilet with men like over 30 and you fail to launch for whatever reason, if you get up there and rummage about and then back off, oh, fuck this. The older men, like even over 25, like will kind of think they're going through that bit, you know. Now we do need to talk to each other about this stuff. I thought I was the only one in the world that was going through this, you know.
Yeah.
Later discovered everybody was having this issue at some point.
Sure.
Yeah. Kept them back, and other people knew the trigger for it, and were working on avoiding the trigger for it, and it was like a real interference in their life, like. Right. So, like, you know, that's another dimension of what's going on in the toilet, right? To allay your fears of what's real, you know, what's going on and what do they think?
Right, yeah. As a transgender
didn't
person.
Notice you as the answer.
Right, yeah. As a transgender person, I mean, passing, you know, on quick, you know, glance with the secondary sex characteristics, you know, is, if you can get past that, like you said, the rest of it is more or less just your own internal sense of paranoia. You're projecting that out into the environment that most people are not picking up on at all. In fact, it's interesting. That brings up a conversation I had recently with a trans woman who comments a lot on my channel. I really appreciate her insight. And, you know, she was concerned that when people were interacting with her, so she passes visually as a woman, but as soon as she opens her mouth and starts talking, even though she doesn't necessarily have a deep voice, she says she feels that it's just the way that, you know, she's acting, that all of a sudden their behavior changes and they interact with her differently. And her assumption is that this person, oh my God, all of a sudden knows I'm a trans woman. I'm not, you know, a real woman. And that's why their behavior changes. But we had a discussion back and forth to say, well, is it possible that instead they're just picking up on, again, the masculine or feminine characteristic of somebody and changing the way that they interact based on that? And that kind of blew her mind for a minute, and realized that there was a personal anecdote where she had known somebody, a female friend, for quite some time, and assumed that this person knew she was a trans woman. And one day it just kind of came out in conversation that she was not a biological female, and this friend was just flabbergasted. And the trans woman realized at this point that the change in behavior, the way that they were interacting back and forth, was just more like a masculine bromance kind of conversation that was completely irrespective of sex, had nothing to do with it, was more or less just that the gender persona, the gender characteristics. It was more on a masculine level rather than feminine. And, you know, biological women can have that. In fact, that was the majority of my friends growing up. I picked fights with guys. I was always in competition with them, and could not befriend them, I guess maybe because I was not really accepted by them. And so I made friends with, you know, middle of the road or masculine women, because I was attracted to the female ones and feminine female ones, and didn't, you know, that was something that didn't cross my mind until much later in my life. But now it's quite the opposite. Now that I fully embrace the masculinity and understand it, I have more male friends and almost no female friends. But, you know, again, that's not characteristic of sex. It's just the masculine persona that I'm befriending. It just happens to be more biological men for me in this case. So
like I'm listening to it, but it sounds like a different world, you know.
Listening to me reflect back the culture characteristics, or just the experience of a biological female trying to integrate into the male space.
Yeah, like I just don't relate. Like, I mean, you know, my teenage years, like, I mean, the idea, I don't think I have a gender in the sense that like it's so well aligned. It's not worth calling it anything, you know. It's like, how do I present to the world? I wear the clothes my fucking wife tells me.
Yeah, there. What she finds attractive, what she wants.
Yeah. I mean, I draw the line at doing anything too vain other than like shaving my head neatly when I'm going to be seen somewhere, or like photographs. Most of, like you caught me in my dressing gown half caught there last week. Yeah, that's what I actually look like. You know, but growing up, there was just like not a thought in my mind. You know, we were all pushed socially to see if we were gay or not, I suppose. Search inside, just because of the 90s, you know. And we were kind of focused on understanding homosexuality, really, and trying to find a way to integrate it. Not that I don't think that's been done very well. It's progress. I mean, Ireland's fucking way ahead of you on that one, though.
Yeah. I could say so. I mean, here in the United States, it's actually flung way too far to the opposite side, as far as I can tell, where instead of just getting, you know, equality, you know, basic rights met just as humans, that it's that, like the video that I did about the transgender agenda and, you know, Sun Tzu and the art of war, it's way more is being pushed and shoved down people's throats, and we're going to end up with a backlash because it's pushing hyper tolerance to the point of chaos, essentially, and resentment on the people who don't agree with that ideology. But anyway, so it's very different here.
Our last Taoiseach, which would be equivalent to your president, the last one was gay, married. Is he married? I don't know, gay anyway. And they spoke about his husband, or the first man. You know, not that we don't have a title for it. We don't call it anything.
Yeah.
You know, he was known as Leo's boyfriend or husband, however they were referring to him. They spoke about him in exactly the way that they would speak about a heterosexual couple in that position. And we've had female heads of state. We haven't had any females like in charge of the guns yet, you know. We've had, I think our police chief is a woman. We're kind of along the binary world, including homosexuality, right, where overtly feminine men are, or in their expressions, are just assumed to be gay. It's like, you know, they're going, and that means that you're gay. Like, that's you telling me you're gay.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of how it's seen. And like Irish Twitter would say that we're still struggling with it, and that even just like gay men holding hands are still getting a bit of abuse, and the occasional person gets a bop. So like it's not 100% clean, but we were asked to vote in a referendum to change our constitution to facilitate gay marriage. And gay people were already allowed to civil union,
yeah,
version of marriage, right? But they were like, nah, we want what we're doing to be called getting married.
Yeah, right. They want the word. They want to appropriate what was a religious institutional term.
This was about 10 or 12 years ago, I think. I can't remember exactly when, something like that. And they did absolutely everything they could outside of the Constitution to facilitate it. But they actually had to change the wording in the Constitution from man and woman to like people or something.
Sure.
Right? Because it clearly said man and woman. Right? And the MBs didn't get a look in either. And like the newspapers were full of people are going to be marrying their horses next, you know, right? and the media, like there was a left-wing media kind of saying it was good, right? And it was the TERFs that the now TERFs at the time were the ones making the noise. And out of fucking nowhere, it was like 93% voted to change the constitution to allow gay people's marriage to be recognized as marriage. And we were like, are we actually, is everybody actually down with the gays? And it was like this sigh of relief as a country. You know? And as I said, they're still having problems. Irish Twitter is exposing.
I don't think that that's something that's ever going to go away. I think it's to try to completely eradicate something that would seem culturally, morally wrong is never going to happen. It's a fool's errand, and it's just a way to propagate an agenda, because it's you can't ever fully eradicate anything. That's like this whole business with global pandemic, trying to completely eradicate, it's not ever going to happen. There's always going to be pockets of it somewhere. And it's the same with, people who commit hate crimes and stuff like that. There are just nasty people out there that are just born that way. And to try to say that, you're going to take measures to completely eradicate it just leads to totalitarian measures. I don't agree with it.
Yeah. All it takes is one person that will be impressed by it. Somebody that wants to impress them, that's willing to like punch somebody who is displaying a weakness. So it doesn't actually mean that, obviously, but like seeing two men holding hands to a certain type of guy is perceived as a sign of vulnerability and weakness, and that makes him a target over other people.
Sure.
And if there's another person that would actually think that was funny or offer approval for it, that's actually all it takes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not even homophobic, really. He's not hitting it because he's gay. Like it's not the gayness, it's not the penis in bum that's the problem. Right? It's because they're male, they're a target,
Yeah.
And they've looked around the room and picked the weakest one.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And if it's not
walking up the street and they see somebody, that's what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And as I say, like creating spaces that are fraternities for men and allowing us to operate outside of boundaries of what's considered civil in order to form the fraternity of men is actually how I think we address all this, But I was gonna fucking wrap that into something. Hang on, I was nearly there.
That's all right.
Right, I do have a funny instance about talking about late night drunken homophobia. I've been accused of it myself. Transphobia.
There you go.
And it's actually quite a funny story.
Okay.
So I was being checked, right, by a girl I was kind of had seen a few times, met her in a nightclub so far, and I met her a few times. And she was living with her best mate, who was a gay fella. And she was shit testing me by inviting me to meet her in the gay nightclub. This is in the capital of the city. So all right, I got it, not a problem. I goes in, did something you're not allowed to advocate that you do. You're on YouTube, so I won't say exactly what I was up to. Nonetheless, almost instantaneously, I got in a dancing mood.
Imagine that.
Right. And I was having the best crack, right, in there. And so yes, I passed the test. And we were in we call them chippers, so it's like a late night food takeaway, which is just like a mess because everyone's drunk. And because of the area of town we were in, there's a strip of gay bars and whatever. So that was the predominant community that was there, right? Our order, right, gets mixed up with an order of a table of men who were somewhere on the trans spectrum, probably just cross-dressers. I don't know.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. It didn't look, certainly they were doing their best, we'll call it, right?
Yeah, right.
And our order got mixed up with them. So I went over to the table and I said, I think you've got my chips and I've got your chips, right? Or something like that. And the one closest to me stands up and he's fucking massive, right? Like up here, you know? I'm like, who the fuck are you, you fucking transphobe?
Oh my God.
Right? And I'm like, they're women, right? They're women. And I made another attempt, right? And then the other one stood up and all my systems got activated and I went into fight or flight mode. And all I saw was a man in a fucking dress and a wig.
Right. Yeah,
right?
sure.
And I was ready to fucking throw down. I was gonna go nuts. Just at the moment that the girl that I was seeing deftly slid herself between us, and she said to the trans man, really not the right time. And she kind of, they must have known each other or what, and she diffused the situation. And I was like, oh!
Yeah, right. Yeah. See it inches away from an explosion.
And then I got latched onto the fact that all I wanted to do was swap chips, right? And I must have shouted that about 100 times whilst being like shoved out of the room by everybody else. You know? And this is it. So even with my best effort, right, there became a point where it was like, he's a woman, he's a fucking man.
Yeah. Yep. Nope.
And I just can't get away, you know. It was like,
no.
And I think that actually, in a funny way, points to a big problem, in the sense of, like, and I mean this in the kindest heart, right? You can be a trans woman you can be a woman as a trans woman up until the point where your biology doesn't count.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's just a funny example of something where it's like, we're looking at athletics and going, kind of counts, you know?
Yeah.
And we're looking at like shared spaces, like changing rooms. And how did everybody get stuck on changing rooms? Surely the shared spaces thing has a better reference point than changing rooms. But anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe changing rooms, people are doing a lot of perving. I don't know. Is it a pervy place, changing rooms? Anyway. Like, and toilets. Right? We're getting stuck on this. And I think that the trans community can help themselves an awful lot if they understand that, like, all we need to do is say, these are the things where your biology counts. All right. The rest of the world is available to you.
Yes. Right. Nuance, parsing nuance, which is something that is seemingly so difficult for people to do.
This little bit, let's zoom it up, and we'll say half of it is kids. Right? Tread lightly.
Yeah.
The other half of it is women. Right? Don't come looking to us for help. We've been trying to fucking deal with the women since day dot. They're a nightmare. Right?
Yeah.
It's not us you need to convince.
Yeah.
Fucking hang out with the urinal.
Yeah, which is good to know, that there isn't potentially as much hatred there as people might project or say that there is. I mean, certainly country dependent, but you know, that's, people like to latch on to the worst stories, like Twitter will tell you, it's, you know, and amplify the worst of the worst rather than focusing on what's going right. So.
And then, like, you're gonna have to hurt some feelings to get your own way, right? You have to look at the drag queens doing story time and go, I don't mind. I can understand why they might not like it, and perhaps something we might work towards later, you know?
Yeah.
The video of the man in drag twerking in front of the 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Set you back 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Who organized that? Like, they should be blacklisted off every LGBTQAI fucking.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Immediately cast out as the black sheep and not associated with the community and its proper PR campaign.
Right. And it's like, we've only just wrapped our head around sex education for kids. And the parents are arguing about whether 11 or 12 or 10 is appropriate to bring in stuff.
Right.
Kids are all different. You can't pick an age, right? So you've got a range, right? That's why schools are probably the wrong place to do it. You know?
Yeah, I would agree.
If you want to do something about it, bring the fucking parents in on a Tuesday evening and make sure the parents are comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Yeah. Anyway, like, the problem, you're never going to convince parents that teenagers know what the fuck they're talking about, because we live with them. You know, so you hear like, you got the 14 seconds on TikTok when they made sense in the last month. The rest of it,
right.
Fucking stupid. This person got a Lego stuck up their fucking nose, right? 6 months ago.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Just because they fucking said something profound that they read. You know?
Yeah, they have moments of clarity. They're starting to come online and really explore their world and have profound insights periodically. But like you said, it's not indicative of a fully mature and completely balanced individual. So.
And this is it. It's like, given time and a platform, a young person can make a very astute observation from their perspective of society that can be a blind spot to people that are older.
Sure. Yeah.
They can write a nice video essay. What they're not capable of doing is finding out how we integrate that information into society into a useful way.
Sure.
I mean, you can't just fucking spit stuff out there and go, right? You're like, what the fuck are we supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
Like the Dr. Phil thing, recent.
Yeah.
With the bearded lady.
Yeah, the Battle of the Beards, as Blair White called it. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did too.
And all of what they said about themselves was fine. It was the demands they were placing on other people that was the problem. You know? And like, they didn't have any idea of what they were actually asking, like, the adults to do. Like, people that are connecting their communities, grandparents that are still in contact with all of their grandkids. They fucking know something about this world, right? Maybe they only feel it, or maybe it's only something that they've induced by how they react to the world. Nonetheless, they fucking know something about the world. And when you stand up there and you say something that doesn't hold under the slightest pressure of what's a woman, like, again, you can add another 20 years to fucking the twerking drag queen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just, sprinkle that right on top of the shit sandwich that's getting created right now.
Right. And then right, I can see your problem, right, of I'm good, right, where's the ones that are actually fucking making sense? Let's get them on Joe Rogan. I will put my 1 like on that. Right? I might even fucking write a comment.
Yeah.
And there isn't anyone. Right? You've got people stuck in their delusion, right? That to anybody that's done more than 6 months of fucking, serious therapy,
right,
will look at that and go, get some help. Like,
Yeah, right.
you've got other people, and like they're just like, okay, they're making a living. They're quite funny. Sam Collins, quite funny, like his style, right? Like, he's not talking about being trans.
Yeah.
It's fucking deep as a fucking not deep thing. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's entertaining. It's, he's not exploring anything. I mean, his take on stuff is just,
yeah.
He's not saying anything wrong. He just hasn't done anything of any depth. He can't.
Not willing to take the risks. There's so much going on there, with, I think, what you're.
It's not a criticism. That's like, he's doing what he's doing.
Oh yeah, no.
Making a few bob out of it. He's actually found a way to exist in the world whilst expressing his masculinity to the public.
Sure.
And he's got people affirming that, and he's got people saying, no, you're not, and he's handling it.
Yeah. And not everybody needs to contribute to the conversation in that way, just because they are technically, covered under that umbrella term, within the community. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of LGBT people that are not participating in, all of the public discourse, the political conversations, considerations, none of that, because either they just lack the interest or the skills or confidence, or, I mean, any number of things, doesn't matter. And that's just not their bag. That's fine. They can go and exist in the world and provide value societally in so many other ways. And trust me, I personally.
So the question is this: if you wanted to call somebody, like, get him on Dr. Phil to straighten that out and explain that when we're saying trans men are men, right? We're not saying they're male, right? We're saying that in the sense of man, which is how we raise young men, we set expectations for them designed to suit their proclivities.
Right.
And if they're dancers or they're poets, right, we send them to the men that are like that, or women or whatever, right? That gets a little gendered, right? When they need a healthy outlet to express their aggression, we put them into sports, and we know what to do with them, right? Does that actually require a male body, or is it a personality, or a whatever?
Yeah.
Right? I don't think there's a claim word for it, right? And I can't I'm working in this field 10 years, paying attention, going to every conference there is to go to. I can't confidently say, because I know so many females that embody that similar spirit, and if I could somehow get them into the group without wrecking the fraternity, which doesn't look to be possible, I bet you they would enjoy the experience and come out of it at the other end.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It may not change them in the profound way that it changes the man. I don't, right? I can't say it. We can't run that trial.
Yeah.
Until we get somebody that doesn't know.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Each individual scenario. Yeah.
And then we can run the trials. Then we can kind of go, oh, okay, we can size them all up and go, nobody would guess, right? Let's insert 100 of you into it. Here's a video diary. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
We don't even have 100 fucking groups to send people to.
Right.
So I'm on board with the great question. All right. And I think that we need to narrow it down to how much of it can you get without the male body? All right. And explore that, and like, you need somebody talking sense with a battle plan, with healthy gatekeeping, setting standards, right? And when they complain about it, you need to say to them, we're not trans women. We're trying to be men. We're going to give it a go.
Yeah.
And we'll let the older men judge if we're going to pull that off or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we're going to trust ourselves. Have we got anything else to pass forward? Not just to the girls that want to be men, but to the young boys too. Have we discovered something about masculinity on our journey that's worthy of wrapping into an exercise that we can show somebody, you know? And like I described, the entrance to the lake, and it being a little bit funny, but it being metaphorical for what we're trying to do together, you know, and forming those bonds and relationships and networks with other men across generations. Like, can you slot into that? The only right, and then you get that validation, right, when you're standing there on the other side of the lake and everybody's kind of laughing and you get given a beer and a blanket, right, and then everybody swaps stories of the little differences about when they did it, and I tell people about how I came up with the idea, you know. And there's like, that is so beautiful, and it works. It so works. For getting people to go back out there and fix problems, talk to each other,
right?
You know, and go into the house with a positive energy. You know, somebody snaps at you and you don't bite. You kind of make a joke, lift them up. I'm here now. You know, and that's where it's coming from. And if you want to be a trans man and you're worried about getting into toxicity, I'm like, shit, okay, don't. It's a legitimate concern.
Sure.
Testosterone is pretty wicked.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Right. And like, you might not want any of the feminine male stuff. A lot of that going on, right? If you really kind of go, okay, I am so masculine in a feminine body that it is really fucking uncomfortable when people treat me like a woman. And okay, I can take my testosterone, and I can, if you need to take them off, take them off. I would say be fucking sure, like.
Sure. Which is something that is a bit of a trouble.
But setting that aside for a second, just sitting there being sure a bit aside, because I have fucking no idea how you could possibly be sure. I have. But let's assume for a second you're like, I'm going for it. All right. What markers are okay? And then let's say you will on testosterone for long enough, nobody will know, right? The bit I was going to say about the toilet, that I was getting to, is learn how to use those cardboard spouts, right? Because when I was doing the music festival circuit as a young man, the girls were all pissing at the fence using these little cardboard cutouts. And they folded up and they fit inside a jeans pocket, right? And like, they were, I was like, fuck it, Jesus, I ain't no fucking faster than I am. Right? Practice it at home. Take it for a test run. And you know, you have to accept whatever happens. If you fucking drop it and then bang your head off the wall and then fall on your ass, you're gonna have to fucking get up and go home.
Basically.
And you're gonna be like, but you've got to get over it, wind yourself up, try again, because like it's totally doable that you can be deft enough to use a urinal whenever you feel like it.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, if you've got this little thing that you could, you know, anyway, side point. Right, you're getting everybody who's reacting to you as a man, right? You're going to get this thing that happens to young men where you're like, oh yeah, right, okay, well, they're kind of treating me like male. But like, he walked in and everybody went, bro, or something, right? You notice a difference, right?
Sure.
Like, and that's down to status, right? But there's an intra-male status that relates to age. So like at 18 or 20, like 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds will treat you like a child and you will look like a child to them. And it's not like they're being mean, you know? Sorry. And then fathers will look at men that don't have children. You're only just beginning, you know, your journey. And then men whose own fathers have died and they have dealt with that will look at men whose own fathers are alive and feel that they haven't yet passed a hurdle.
Yeah.
Right? Or like they're not in the final level of
initiating
your maleness in relationship to your family.
Yeah.
Like when you're the oldest. It's quite profound. Right? I could talk for hours about that, but and like, so handling these things well in these levels always puts you in a position of the people that you look up to looking down at you. Right? Everybody remembers it at 21 being so fucking frustrated. It's why nobody's treating me like a fucking man. You know? And the answer was I wasn't acting like one. You know?
Yeah.
Right? And acting like a man is something that you command off other people. Right? I make a game of it personally, but like, you know, as I say, if I end up if I ever end up in a scenario of everybody staring at me, I've got to dance.
You've always got that you can whip out.
I dance, you know, and I'm going to turn the cringiest thing ever into something that's not as bad.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic backup plan. I've never heard it, and I think I appreciate that.
But it's in holding to yourself silently that you feel like a man. I mean, I gave you this kind of weird poetic thing about only judging yourself, right? And that you can't feel like a man until you actually think you're a man, right? And that you can go through all of the stages, but unless you actually believe yourself when you say it, even being given it from someone else isn't strong enough when there's nobody left above you. So if you get to old age and don't feel like you're a man, whatever that is. I mean, we all know what we're talking about there, but it just sounds so corny, you know. Anyway, like that's a haunt. Like, I see it. I see that. That's what these drunk old men are, you know. These homeless people that somehow get homeless in late stages of their lives and stuff.
Yeah,
this is often a big contributor, you know. Like I've had soldiers telling me that they felt less of a man because they had killed people they didn't need to kill. You know? Like that's a really hard one to unpick too.
Yeah.
And this is where kind of when you align yourself to your environment and the people around you in a positive expression of masculinity, which is the beast, like right?
Yeah.
Like the beast is there always to be deployed in the worst kind of emergencies. Right? In the meantime, it's the fire and fuel.
Yeah.
To get you right. And humor is a great way to keep tension broken, you know. And this is what it is, kind of the experience of being a man is always kind of feeling not a man in the eyes of the people you consider manly, and this actually being a driving force, you know. And then also seeing fucking 21-year-olds and you're like, oh my god, I was that stupid, you know.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's cringe. You should have fucking seen me, like, oh, dying inside at how fucking lame we were.
Yep.
Like you know, and then like seeing our partners looking back at their 19-year-old pics going, oh, wasn't I so fantastic then? And I'm like, do you remember how much of an arsehole I was?
Yeah. I can think of that for myself. Just cringy, absolutely cringy.
But that's just the difference in the male versus female experience of looking back, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and I think these are those deeper senses of masculinity that kind of are important, you know, and it is the bond and connection between men too, you know. I mean, I was getting around at one point to talking about the Swedish fella. I'll come back to that, but
Still hanging in there. Yep.
I'll ask you for a prompt. If I'll let you take over. I feel like I've been talking
Yeah,
nonstop.
yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, it's good to have those streams of consciousness unravel themselves fully. But to go back to the beginning of that thought process, which is that, you know, trans men are men, trans women are women. It's such a nuanced thing, I think, because nobody is arguing that a trans man who is emulating masculinity can't do that or can't embody a healthy version of masculinity. Nobody's really arguing that. So you could maybe more accurately say that trans men can embody masculinity just fine, and trans women can embody femininity just fine. The argument comes in for people when, like you said, it's where biology actually matters. And this is where the conversation needs to get very nuanced, because you can't have biological differences between the sexes intersecting in certain areas without serious consequence. And there's just no way around that. So we have to both accept the truth of that situation where it applies, and then the rest of it, we really should just be concerned with developing people into their healthiest versions of whatever that is, more on the feminine side, more on the masculine side, or if they really are somewhere in between, just fine. Pick a mentor. It doesn't matter if they're male or female, as long as it doesn't, you know, happen in a sphere where the biology really does matter. It's just the mentoring of what healthy masculinity and healthy femininity are, that we really do not have much guidance for in the world, wherever you're looking for it. Like you said, so many generations of the past were screwed up by the horrific things that they experienced, whether it be, you know, war or some other, you know, social interrupter like that, and the lack of focus or ability to focus on mental health and therapeutics in that way, because it was literally just about surviving. You know, we've come from generations of that recently, within, just like you said, the last couple of generations, who didn't know how to do what we're now doing with mental health and therapy. So we're unpacking all of that at the same time, trying to determine what healthy masculinity and femininity even are, because we've been swinging the pendulum back and forth of, you know, who's in power when, and, you know, oppressed oppressor dynamic, and not actually settling on something that's healthy for each version. And you look in, you know, pop culture or, you know, media, anything like that, that's widely available for people to consume, and it's just playing out narratives of unhealthy versions of each of those, or just unhealthy versions of people, period. Narcissistic tendencies, or, you know, inability to self-differentiate, you know, becoming enmeshed, and you know, just emotional manipulation, or that would be covert narcissism, or overt narcissism, which is just straight up, you're going to do what I tell you to do kind of thing. And, you know, I think we're just now at the forefront here of being able to determine what healthy versions of people and of masculinity and femininity are. At the same time, we have transgender people who are bringing into question, you know, what is, you know, can they participate in rituals of manhood or womanhood, or go through, you know, and participate in each of those individual cultures that, generally speaking, are biologically determined, but don't have to be. They can be separable. It's it's such, I mean, there are so many plates spinning and cogs moving on this at the same time, that it's, to try to find a center of balance here is so difficult, and isn't helped by the fact that, you know, I see it on my channel every single day with comments where people don't even realize the logical fallacy the logical fallacies that they're committing when they communicate, or even that they're not actually communicating based on the definitions of words. They're allowing the way that they feel about things to determine what the words mean, and when they're communicating with that, and then they come in with their feelings first, projecting, you know, whatever, and are unable to objectively digest whatever is going on. That, I mean, I addressed that in my I don't know, troubles and considerations in questioning the transgender community, that before we can even have a discussion of manhood and womanhood, we have to get people used to the idea of even being questioned and accepting potentially new ideas. Like, there's so many hurdles in the way, it's ridiculous. So yeah,
it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, absolutely, it can. It's just, God, it's so, to me, in addressing the people on my channel, I appreciate it more than any of them ever know, especially the people that disagree with me, because it's an exercise, every single comment, in searching for these things that are being done improperly, not helping anybody, and, you know, pointing those out, and like, yeah, I'm sure they're not going to appreciate it, but I'm learning every time I do it, and it's an opportunity to potentially correct and redirect. And I've had people on my channel go, wow, you know, I'm not used to conversation going this way. I'm not used to it actually opening the door to some greater understanding of things. And I really, as part of what I live for, if anything, of my life mission is that, just, you know, being there to hold up the mirror and question. And I'm learning at the same time as somebody else is, making those profound realizations is, for me, what a lot of life is the good stuff, the meat of it. And yeah, the transgender platform is just I mean, it's a gold mine of questions to begin to ask about the nature of humanity in general. So.
That's the good bit. That's the good bit. You
know,
that's what we get to do
when
we've had a couple of generations of people that haven't been tortured by a war. You know? And like, I would encourage anybody who engages in all of this not to be angry that the world isn't ready for them in whatever form they're expressing themselves. You know, as I said, we're only just, like I said, here in Ireland, we have, like, as I said, we've had women and gay people in politics, and it's not been a thing about them. Like, no, but it wasn't a reference point. It wasn't like gay Leo every week. It was just, he was Leo the t-shirt.
Sure. Yeah, right.
It wasn't particularly interesting. He isn't particularly attractive, nor is his boyfriend.
Right. You
know?
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of work, but we're just getting used to it. Like,
yeah. Right.
And there was a bit about our referendum where I was talking with a friend, and I always thought she was a lesbian, but then she turned out to have a baby with a man. Whatever. And she'd be quite hardcore lefty, and I was asking her about it, and she'll kill me if she sees this, but it was, sorry, I lost my trail of thought.
No, it's okay.
What did I say before I said I mentioned the woman? Before
you mentioned the woman, about you didn't realize that she was a lesbian because she'd had a child.
What did I say just before that?
And just before that, oh boy, yeah, lost me on that one. Sorry.
I was talking about, sorry, gay acceptance in.
Okay. Yep.
And where we're at, right?
And that Leo and his boyfriend weren't particularly good looking.
Yeah, right. It was a nothing burger, and we were doing very well. And there was something about waiting with the referendum. Like, a lot of people said that we were ready for that referendum ages ago, and the newspapers were winding us up, and they were right. Okay, because it was a huge vote, yes. And I was trying to say that if that vote was like 53, 55, we'd still be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you waited long enough that it was like absolutely put to bed with in our case, with a referendum, however you might actually achieve that elsewhere in whatever other systems, where you can get a record of how people feel about an issue. Like, it put the whole thing away so that we could have a gay Taoiseach, and his presidency was all about his being gay, like.
Right. Yeah.
And you can, like, so that is achievable, but it's really slow. I mean, you get to make the change that your grandchildren might be able to experience.
Right.
As I said, I wasn't joking when I said the drag queen twerking in front of the kids set you back 20 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
100% mean that. You know? 20 years might even be conservative. So we're playing the long game. And I think you should look at it in terms of building allyships with people in order to get these ideas clean, right? They're fucking, the idiot spouting half-baked stuff is just not working, right? It's not creating positive publicity, right?
Yep.
You've got parents going, I wonder how long would I actually get in jail for killing someone?
Right, yeah.
Come to my fucking school, you know?
Is it worth it? Yeah.
Right. Not right. And God forbid somebody sneaks through, something happens, there's a cover up, and then it gets exposed.
Yeah.
Come back to being trans in fucking 2200, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what right? You need to nail down trans men and men, right? All I can do is speak about being a man in the hopes of helping you to find something in that to help nail that down.
Yeah.
And confirm to you that in circles where we're dealing with only masculine or only feminine, a lot of the language used when people talk about man as the form, as an expression of masculinity as opposed to the male, actually kind of, if we're all honest, that makes a bit of sense, right? And we can actually work with that language and tweak it for our own uses. Actually, that makes sense, right? So then we kind of have to tacitly admit, all right, fuck, that might become in a form so extreme as to cause a dysphoria and a discomfort. So we kind of have to go, even from a philosophical level, all right, fuck it. Yes, we have to concede that. And how do we get this, like, under the cover where it's not really an issue? Whereas if, like, it came out at the dinner party that your neighbor was actually trans, you'd be like, oh. In the same way it would be that if I found out my neighbor was gay, like it. And can I, thinking, I wonder what his gayness perspective might. Can I ask him about how I might cut my beard? I wonder if he'd have a better idea about.
Yeah. What kind of gay are you?
Feminine, right. Yeah. And most people are like that. And the people being homophobic are really being homophobic. It's all tied to other things.
Right.
And I don't think that there's that. I don't think that there's actually groups of people that have made this great moral judgment that they're the evil people.
Yeah.
The TERFs, it's like fucking see is all I have to say about see. All right. This is why we don't have fucking men's groups. That's all I've got to say about fucking TERFs. You can fucking sort it out. Right?
Yeah.
To the trans women, good luck, boys. I just can't see that. There's no way.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna get, like, trans women. I can speak a bit about trans men from the point of view of future of man, right? Manhood, right? Like, trans women, I kind of have a bit of a fucking problem with in certain areas.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, what are you doing? Joining the women's athletics? Well, I'm a woman. It's like, shut the fuck up for a second, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, for certain things, it really. I
want to represent. It was like, find a different way to represent. Like,
yeah.
I want to be the best cyclist. Shut the fuck up. You want to be the best cyclist. You realize the damage you're doing to society, like.
Yeah, and that's just it, is that a lot of the trans radical activism is not interested in anybody other than themselves and their needs. It's incredibly tyrannical. And that, like you said, it sets society back in progress because it's just a manifestation of narcissism. And it does not, on a long game basis, like you were saying, if we're playing a long game here, I know my ass is numb too, if that's what you're getting at. Oh crap, yeah. Yeah, on a long-term basis, or rather it's a long game. It's not something that you're going to see immediate progress on, and trying to push that way is not going to get anywhere quickly. And there's not much that's going to get anywhere quickly anyway, but it's certainly not going to be in a positive way. I have people commenting on my channel all the time. Stop questioning, the trans agenda, or for trans rights and trans this and trans that. The gays and lesbians had to fight forever for their right to marry and blah blah blah. And look, I get that there is a degree to which I think it's absolutely necessary to fight and argue for just equal treatment. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. What's not okay is pushing to people who aren't actually your enemy, who aren't trying to fight you. You're making enemies out of everybody, saying, and you all are stopping me from achieving what I want, what I deserve. And it's, again, pushback against bullies, certainly, and things that are really, truly unfair. But what people begin to think is truly unfair is really just them being selfish. And it creates a tension and a bad name for the group in general. So.
Well, I think, right, at some point, you're going to have to engage, right, combat, debate. Right. Okay, so Blair White is out there taking it on, right? Did I catch a bit where she was doing like religious seminars?
I don't know. I haven't watched too much of her stuff, but
right. Like, you have to be able to speak religious language even to communicate with these fucking people. Right?
Yeah, right.
Gender, fuck off. Right?
Yeah, hey, yeah, no. It does not enter the vernacular for them. Yeah, you got to speak their language.
But I had a conversation, right, using like the Orthodox Christian version where they speak about the masks, right? And we spoke about the masks, and whatever he was talking about, I'm not sure. I know what I was talking about, right? And we used the many masks concepts to speak about what we were talking about the other day, to do with the personality being who you are and the persona being who you want to be, and the outer persona being how other people see you as an average, but then you've got how they all see you as an individual, how all this is different.
Right.
And this is the Swedish guy. He's an Eastern Orthodox Christian. Right? And in my mind, I was peeling through these layers, thinking about how, like, we all wear, the principle is this: we all wear masks, and we have different masks for different situations.
Sure. Yeah. Different relationships. Yeah.
And we're all, and the closer you get to people, the closer you get to taking off the last. Depending on how into it you are, some people say you can't take the last mask off. Other people say that nobody will take the last mask off. The goal is to get as close as possible. And you speak about masks, and we were discussing how the mask of masculinity, when in an outward performance, so that other people perceive you as masculine, and that's how they register and they treat you differently. How can you handle, or how can you incorporate this being a mask, your masculinity as a performance to the outside world, being a mask that you take off and that you can't, if you say that that is the final mask. However, because it's not the ultimate truth, you're a biological female performing the masculine.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves you in a half on, half off predicament. It's unclear if the right position to take is that it's a mask you shouldn't take off. Because, as I say, we believe that there's masks. Some people believe the final mask is your face and it doesn't come off, right? Or you can't take the last mask off. Other people believe that you just can't. Nobody can actually get that far because you actually have to know how to take each mask off. And so the idea would be, like, obviously your wife, you can put that mask down for your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you can realize that there's a masculine mask underneath that is still there in your partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then in the absence of other people and you're taking a shower, that also has to come off. Yeah. So that you can clean, right? And you can turn that into a metaphorical cleaning, right? Mm-hmm. That if you do a retreat for 60 days on bread and water and silence,
mm-hmm.
right? You will come running for those masks. Put them fucking on.
Yeah. Right? Put that thing back where it came from. Or so help me. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's, I think, part of the reason why people lose themselves in social isolation, because like you said, who are you really if it's not for all the ways that you interact with everything around you? Like, who really are you?
Yeah. And like everybody's answering this question, like that particular question of how many masks to take off or if they come off. Like loads of people have lots of different ways of speaking about the same thing, right? I was struggling over it only last week, and my Swedish friend said, let's talk about the masks, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. And then he tells me it comes from some fucking religious book, and it was something Jesus said, or, you know. Anyway. However, he was finding wisdom in his religion that he was applying to what I was struggling to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuff worth thinking about. So, like, if you get past tits and ass and who you're attracted to, and you really want to start thinking about what is the masculine,
right,
and how do you express it, right? Is like, as a start, putting, like we spoke about this before, I see a paradox that's going to be very difficult to overcome. And maybe in the grander scheme of things, if you can frame up trans men or men into something that has a tagline after it that makes it make sense, right? That would be a lifetime achievement. You get a Nobel Peace Prize for that one. Right? And as I say, you need like 6 to 12 words to go after it to make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Trans men are men in every instance of life where your penis doesn't count, which is 99% of it. I don't know. I'm riffing, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you've got, right, there's many levels of manhood that we speak about at a different level that go beyond the basic, right? And we always speak about them in terms of how they relate to other people. There is a personal development to being a man where you decide for yourself, I'm actually acting out that which I think is a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a taking off of masks exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And doing silent retreats is part of it, you know. Like, you don't have to starve yourself. It helps, though. Right?
Yeah.
And like, if you're not crying by the end of the first week, like, you need therapy, right? Like hardcore, you know, maybe electroshock or something. You know? When you do silent retreat, if you've got something that's emotionally impacting you and you can't figure out a way to get it out. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're avoiding doing something you know you should be fucking doing, and silent retreat's not gonna help.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got deep questions about yourself, this is how you help, right? And I would nearly say, right, that what do you say to young trans men? I would actually say, hold hold off. Like, the advantage you gain from taking testosterone at 15, right? You actually don't want people to treat you like a fucking teenage boy.
Right. Yeah.
Not better than a teenage girl. Everybody treats you both like fucking kids.
Yeah. Either way, it's not fun.
Being a man doesn't get good till about 30. Right?
Yeah. No, I think I can definitely concur with that.
Unless you're exceptionally tall and exceptionally beautiful.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a 25-year-old male Adonis is certainly not harmful, I don't think.
And I don't know what's going on with the femboys, and I don't know who's attracted to them.
But I got theories, but that's a whole nother. Yeah.
It's a niche, and be aware that you might outsupply the demand quite quickly.
Real quick. Yeah. Really, really quickly. Let's put it that way.
Fuck it, I've lost where I was going again now. Right, so you're putting these things together, right? And I think what you can do is start fucking working on these little details that if you can tie them up a little bit, right? And if you can kind of say to younger trans men or prospective, whatever, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Teenage girls that are thinking about it, and say to them, wait till you're 18, at least, because your relationship with your parents is going to really count, and you're going to fuck them up if you try to do it before you're 18. Right? Just fucking sit on it. Right? If you can't wait, then you're having an episode. You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be another video that I'm going to do.
Get help to calm down.
Sure. Yeah. Is the difference in the transgender experience, the spectrum, of which it happens across, because you have, I mean, let's just say that the goal of transitioning, however that looks, to whatever degree that looks, the goal is that you are having an improved quality of life. We'll just put it that way. And you have transgender individuals who from a very early age insist that they are in, quote unquote, the wrong body. And it's kind of hard to say exactly where that's coming from, whether there's some kind of neurological wiring disorder issue. There's a mismatch, clearly, because your genitals don't match what it is your brain's telling you. So that is classic disorder. That is one end of the transgender experience, all the way to, my end, which I think is the very mild end, that I did not experience, such severe dysphoria from a young age that it caused me to be inoperable or dysfunctional within society, because I had a lot of, shame or, disgust with my body and, with everything else. It was just more or less, as I began to mature and develop as a person, recognizing at least what I label as having a very masculine persona, a very the way that I behave, the way that I process information and view the world and interact with people and things, and the things that fulfill me are all typically very masculine ways. So as I discovered myself, I realized that, that was more of the developed version of me. And I thought, okay, it's not that I wish that I were a biological male, because I'm of the belief that everything, we come here with whatever we've got for the experience and lessons that we're learning on a soul level. That's a very religious belief. Not everybody's going to believe that. That's fine. For me, it plays major into just not resenting or regretting whatever experience I'm given, because clearly it's all part of, what I'm supposed to be doing. But I decided to take the testosterone because for me, it was this, well, maybe on a scientific level, there are physiological factors within me that, even though I'm biologically female, there are certain neurochemical pathways within the endocrine system that respond better to testosterone. Let's try that, because all the side effects of testosterone that are irreversible, that if I try it for a year, if it's not something that helps me feel better in any way, even though my life in general, mental health was great at that point, or so I thought. I didn't have depression, anxiety, blah, blah, blah. You know, I can handle deeper voice, you know, facial hair, and any of the other characteristics if they were irreversible. In fact, I actually quite enjoy those characteristics. And after having been on testosterone for a whole year and having it stay stably wonderful, very good for me, I just felt, I did a video, the unexpected effects of testosterone, way back in the beginning of my transition. That was basically, there's a feeling of centeredness that I feel. It's very hard to describe in scientific terms because I don't know really what's going on there. But for me, it's just when things click, you know, that's really the best thing that I can describe. So for me, it was, okay, can testosterone improve my life on that level? Yes. Yes. Okay. What about the other changes? Breasts, I never liked them anyway. They seem to just get in the way of stuff. For me, I also was diagnosed with fibrocystic breast disease. It runs in the family. It increases your chances of breast cancer and all those things. It was painful. And I just thought, you know what, this is stupid. I never intend to have children, breastfeed, none of those things. Like, it is a definitive no, 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 no. And by 30 years old, my window for doing that anyway was going to be a lot shorter. So by that time, I thought totally okay for me to get rid of them. And I don't ever see regretting that. That was me personally, and, you know, for my individual situation. And so, again, this is the spectrum of transgender experience that we're talking about. It's very nuanced. And I'm trying to tie that back into something that you said before I started rambling, which was that, like you said, you kind of just have to, if you, as a teenager, if you have a serious problem with being in, you know, serious dysphoria that does require psychological intervention, therapeutic intervention, and people will hold the threat of, you know, well, trans kids are offing themselves because they're not getting, you know, the therapy that they need, and they're using that as a way to push more medical intervention on the majority of kids, who the majority of them, this kind of thing resolves, and they're not giving sufficient weight to, you know, psychotherapy and therapeutic support until, like you said, past a certain age where we know the brain has fully, at least it has fully developed, really, and given that possibility for gender dysphoria to resolve itself. That's, and as far as I'm concerned, unfortunately, currently the best course of action, because you're going to end up with far more kids that will be disadvantaged by this rush for medicalization early on in life, in order to save the few kids that are at higher risk of ending their own lives because of the gender dysphoria. And that's a really, really shitty thing to have to sit there and look at and really balance the two, because you don't ever want to say that one kid's life is worth more than the other. Nobody wants to ever say that. It's in the larger argument where you have to come to grips with the very real reality of what we're doing here when we're making these decisions for kids. So yeah.
Look, if you need the wider community support, you have to make it right.
Yeah.
Like, it might be up for adjustment at a later date, right?
Sure.
This is new. This is so new. So new.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody questioning it and saying that kids can't have that, to the people who are like, but I've been helped and I needed this, and you know, without this, I wouldn't even be here. And I understand that everybody wants to advocate for their own survival. Clearly, but it's just it's so hard, you know, to try to get that kind of point across. Nobody wants to be
I have little sympathy for people threatening to kill themselves, you know.
Yeah, it's
difficult to hear it from a child, though. You know?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a pain point for people, and there's to try to negotiate that. I mean, I can sit here and spout it while I don't got a kid sitting in front of me telling me this. I know obviously it's going to be a whole lot harder when you have something, you know, like that you're a real thing that you're having to negotiate. This is, I think why. Go ahead.
I think like a sensible approach is you have to get, like, help for the child.
Absolutely. Psychotherapy, support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That are kind of on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very intensive. That is, as far as I can tell, the answer for now.
But like chemical interference in children, like it's just, even if it works for some people or enough or whatever, you're just not going to get people to agree to that at this stage, at least. Not a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm highly suspicious that it's effective, right? It's like, you have, like, and I stumbled across this problem with you in when I was saying to you, you said, I feel like I am expressing the masculine. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we don't even know what that is, and we're working on it, you know? And you saying, I feel like it. You're like, tell me, how does it feel?
Tell me, good sir, what is that? Impart your wisdom upon me. Yes. No.
Yeah. That's what we're all searching for. I'm fucking freezing my nuts off in a lake with
Right. Trying to figure it out.
Discover this feeling, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, when a child says it, like, it's a tough thing to call kids bluff, you know?
Yeah.
I think if you tighten it up, make it over 18s, provide support for kids that express gender dysphoria, be real, like, you know, be compassionate, but make an effort to root people out. And by making it over 18s for anything surgical or hormonal, it cures a lot of problems and might be a worthy sacrifice, right? The parents that are obviously like having a TikTok show about their trans kids, right?
Yeah.
And everybody watching it is going,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They're not even ashamed.
No, they're using their kids as some form of attention and virtue signaling. It's there's something really seriously wrong.
Get sensible trans council together, do some gatekeeping, draw some lines that you can get people to agree with.
Yeah.
Right. Primarily, the most important thing about anything that you do is that you get people to agree to it, right? Even if it's not the most effective.
Yeah, common ground, right?
Progress, right? Right, and then you've got to make your sacrifices. Like, have them. You were right. We were leaving the door open for some weird stuff. Right, weird stuff's happened. You were correct. Like, let's close that door again. However, there is people that suffer with such extreme dysphoria that we now have the technology to help. Great,
right?
You know? And like, yeah. But you need a counsel. You need, like, and as I say, trans women is different. They have the problem of women gatekeeping against them with not, like, could you imagine men doing what the TERFs are doing? What does that look like in the male format? You'd all get anthrax in the post, you know?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say you don't hear about it. There's a reason that the argument often in public discourse is, you know, trans women are women. You don't hear trans men are men.
And you hit the nail on the head when you said that it is actually the trans man that is at risk, tiny risk, right?
Sure.
Nonetheless at risk, right? Not the other men in the room. So the trans women have, like, and they're just barking up the wrong tree, you know, like trying to separate childbirth from the word woman. Never gonna happen.
No.
Never. Find another way. Right? Trans men, on the other hand, have the battle of, we're not organized, you know, we're still trying to figure out what men are, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right. And a lot of the toxicity you see is expression of pain, and the feminine reaction to it isn't, it's making things worse, but then they're expressing pain too. So, you know, they're all like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no, and that's just it, is that, you know, if, for as many people who want to make the generalized statement that, you know, equality, men and women are equal, or, you know, should be equal. I mean, of course, in some ways, absolutely, just as a human being, but to deny some of these differences, you know, that it's unequal, again, in trans women in women's spaces and trans men in men's spaces, it's not the same conversation at all. And
so what the opportunity I think it presents you in the space and time and where we're at with it all is separate yourselves from trans women, acknowledge that what you're doing is something different, right? And that you know what you're discovering along the way doesn't appear to be relevant to them, and what they're saying doesn't sound relevant to me beyond the basic, right? You need to gather people that make sense and expound your ideas. You need to take on the challenge of making trans men make sense, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to start working on, like, where are you going to gatekeep, respecting what you think you can achieve vis-a-vis and get people to agree with, right?
Right.
You might only get to eventually at some point make something make sense as a foundational block for this later project.
Right.
You know, you're leading the pack here. You know, you were actually the first person I listened to that actually sounded like I even wanted to talk to them. The rest of them,
I was gonna say I will take that as a compliment, but it's also very sad to me to realize that that seems to be the case, at least in the YouTube sphere, or anybody that's in public eye to any degree, so, on the issue.
and I hope that younger people have a different perspective on the likes of YouTube and TikTok than we do, right? Sometimes I think I'm looking at that and like you've people doing tutorial videos and they can't do it in the tutorial. Right?
Yeah.
This is not how we should be teaching each other.
No, not everybody. The equal access to online media and, you know, widespread information like that is a blessing and a curse, because that means everybody really has that kind of platform and a voice.
What I'm hoping is, right, because I grew up where stuff got beamed through the TV and you had 4 channels.
Right.
And what got seen was highly curated. There was a watershed for it.
Right.
There was loads of stuff deemed unworthy for public viewing, right? And put through the Catholic filter.
Right. Yeah. Which, I mean.
So I'm a little bit sensitive, perhaps, to having this, like, I'm feeling it connected to, like, how are they allowing that on TV? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it's not huge, right? And I would expect that younger people will have grown up with YouTube and won't feel that they will see somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about just flick past. You know, I write underneath, you might want to fucking learn how to do it before you try it. You know.
Hey, yeah.
I'm getting emotionally attached to this.
Yeah, for the impressionable minds coming across this with parents who are not properly policing their exposure to that information.
And when I came across the, like, as I say, trans women caught everybody's attention there for a while. You know, so what's this? And then when I came across trans men, I was like, what the f are you talking about? I actually know something about this, and, like, you know, but who's your doctor going to refer to you? You know, and so you've got to start it off yourself, Artemis. This is your challenge. You have to get the ball rolling as fast as you can, like, but in the expectation that if you get any movement at all, that's an achievement, you know.
Yeah.
And hopefully find a way forward. You need to find another trans man that's talking fucking sense, all right, and start expounding these issues, right? You might have to settle for people close enough, right, and work on your differences and accept your differences and work together on what you agree on.
Sure.
Right. As a compromise, right? And then, like you said, you were doing your project, you're throwing yourself out there.
Right.
Cue Rocky training montage.
Yeah.
You've got to prepare yourself and treat it like we treat anything important, right? Put a ritual on it, give it a sound, give it a smell, give it a color, right? Not in the marketing sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm more talking about a bell that's got a bit of scented oil or something on it, and when you ring the bell, you can smell it, right?
Yeah.
And that when you're going out to better yourself, to prepare to do this, in the effort to get the result that you want, that you ritualize your preparations, right? It doesn't fucking matter what we're doing in the ritual, you know?
Yeah,
it's symbolism and it's mind frame, and in the masculine, that seems to work for people.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't met someone it doesn't work for, right? But I've only ever tried it out in the masculine.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider that and try to see if there's crossover like that in the feminine sphere. I'll be totally honest with you. Like I said, everything that most men have espoused that they say, you know, it fulfills them, makes them feel like they have a sense of purpose, that they enjoy what play looks like, what happiness looks like, what they enjoy. I mean, it's just the way they think about things. I mean, so much of it is just stuff that I personally, it works for me. You know, they say meditation in general is something that works more for men than it does for women. Women are, you know, more about the yoga sphere kind of thing if they're going to do that. And again, I'm not saying that it is black or white this way, just general trends, but I do find that to be the case for me. And then, you know, the physical nature of stuff, and then the, you know, goal achieve. You know, there's so many things.
And to see it as a form of personal growth, you know. And don't see something as you can't look at it as one day you're going to come out as a man.
The journey's never over.
Yeah. But it doesn't make any sense. It kind of creates this, it's implicit within it that anybody knows exactly what you mean by man in that sentence.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah. That's why I generally don't attach much to the term, you know, man. And people say, oh, you're trying to be a man. No, not really. I'm divorcing the idea, you know, that people might have of man, or the definition of man, from just me just trying to be the healthiest version of myself, whatever that looks like, and grabbing onto ideas that we already have and mashing them together with that knowledge to, you know, mature and develop myself. That's really it. It's not trying to be something specific. There's a very big difference.
And as you explore yourself, you find yourself surrounded by men. And wouldn't it be much easier if I had bigger guns and they didn't treat me like a girl? Yeah, it makes total fucking sense to me.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't have any kind of even moral obligation or moral objection in any way to, like, somebody say, I'm a lesbian, in our relationship, I'm the pants wearer, right? It gets in the way all the fucking time when people treat me like a girl, right? And I'm willing to sacrifice actually not perhaps being able to pick up the occasional box, right? And exist in the world where people that don't count perceive me as a man and as a master.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't necessarily need to be I am a man. Oh, why would you fucking set the bar that high?
Yeah, right.
That I won't feel good about myself until I feel like a man. Oh my fucking God, you've made it impossible.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of the time my wife told me to work less, earn more, and spend more time with the kids. You know?
Yeah.
He was like, I understand, you just want to be angry.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, like, I was wrapping it into, and I wanted to kind of bullet point a few things for you. that you might be able to work with, and you can kind of orientate yourself towards. And then when you're looking at stuff, so you've got your set of principles and values, which are very strong. I was quite impressed by that. I don't think I clearly state that about I'm way too more exploratory. I look back at things and go, oops.
Right. Dust that away, learn from that one. Yeah.
And like, to complete that, right, you need an outside goal of, right, and I think that, yes, you have got to get stuff making sense, right, which means it's got to be hashed out in a way that you can meet all objections. Like, do you know Earthling Ed, the vegan? Do you ever see his stuff?
No,
Like, he's a dick. He puts me out. Oh, well, he's not. Right, I respect him greatly. His aesthetic, I don't agree with, and I think his ethics are shallow. However, I have great respect for him. As a communicator and as a person that engages in really high conflict conversation, he's got endless calm, right? And he's got the goodies. He knows his stuff. There's not a single thing you can think of that he hasn't already got an answer.
Yeah, well versed.
Many answers.
Yeah.
That's the man you need to be. And you need to stand up there, and as I say it to a room full of people. I don't have to be male to be a man. And in fact, I bet you, if we were going to measure our real dicks, I'm burdening more responsibility than you. And the people in my life that love me, trust me and lean on me in a masculine way. Right? And kind of say, oh, that's my flag. Are you as man as me?
Yeah, right.
That's the target. These are the goals and these are the targets. And then when you come off the stage, you're like, right, how did it go? Right. Yeah. And you swallow that, and then you do it again. That's what really feeling like a man is. Like,
yeah, right.
And staking your claim in the world and saying, actually fucking no. Right, but having the goodies to back it up. And that's why I bring up Earthling Ed. It is a good example because I find him irritating. But I can show him that respect because of what he's doing.
Yeah. Right.
And I'd have a go at him. I reckon I'd put him through the ringer, but on his ethics.
Yeah. No. I mean, you have to if you're going to give somebody the respect for them spouting an opinion. There's got to be something solid there behind it, or else it's just everybody's got an opinion.
On a lighter note, I can see you're fading. Well, we won't go much longer.
Really, maybe I'm just hitting a point of zen, or maybe it's because my ass hurts. I don't know, but either way, it's not too terribly late for me. I was looking back at my notes to see if you didn't have something pressing that you wanted to bring up, that we could end on a note that was for comedy's sake. Pick from the list of topics. What's sticking out to me is people hearing about your testosterone prescription at the pharmacy, or getting hit in the crotch, or handshakes. If any one of those are jumping out at you, that you mentioned any one of those as potentially funny anecdotes.
Can you give me 2 minutes just to use the toilet?
Yeah.
I'll come back, and I got some funny stuff I can tell you.
Good. Cool.
And much along the lines of what I was saying about the toilet.
Good.
All right, handshakes.
Yep.
Right?
So handshakes.
Heard several people mentioning discomfort with what's going on with handshakes, right? So I can frame it for you, and I can give you a trick.
Okay.
Right. Shaking the fist is what nobody wants to end up doing. Think of it in terms of tops and bottoms, right? Someone is going to offer the handshake and someone's going to take it, right? Easy thing to do is just be a bottom. Just take it, right? Whatever they offer. And if you're expecting, if the cue for a greeting happens, wait to see what's offered, right? And just accept what's offered. The delay will be imperceptible to everybody else, right? If, right, you end up like this, cringe, right? The way out of it is to slap their shoulder with the other hand.
Create a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then they might do the same. You don't have to, you can shake it if you like and laugh at it or whatever, right? But the way out of it is the slap down.
I guess that maybe that's something that's more, I don't know if that's something that you experience in Ireland. Here, it's never ever been a thing where somebody's, it's always like if you're going to do a fist bump, it's usually going to come like up here versus handshakes, which are done, down here. And I've always gotten the handshake. And that's something that even from day one, it's always been a very, full on direct eye contact, strong handshake kind of thing. So for me,
there's a third piece. There's the fist bump and there's the handshake, and then there's the kind of I can't do it with my own hand.
yeah, right.
In the ear one, right? That's a trap. Huggers like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can fucking pull you in and hug you.
Yep.
It's a trap. Stiff arm those motherfuckers if you're not into it. Right? If somebody's hanging you and you're like, all right, offer them a low shake, right? And then think to yourself, I wonder how long it's going to take them to shake my hand.
Do you play chicken with them? Don't
move. Yeah. It's fair game. It's 50-50. This is evens. This is a test of social patience. And challenge yourself with it as a point of masculinity. If this is what you're trying to do, or if somebody offers you a fist, maybe you decide for yourself, I'm going to go for the good old firm handshake. I'm not doing fisty bumps. We look like children, and I'm not doing this silly bro hug stuff with people. I don't do it with the people I know and I like, and I'm not doing it with strangers. Yeah. Which was actually my own personal layout, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'll hold my hand out there indefinitely, right? And if they don't notice it and they walk away, it will turn into right, as they're walking away, right? Mm-hmm. But like the statement of "I am present, I am Gar" comes in. Just stick that hand out there. Yeah, you're going to take. You're going to take that hand off me.
Be confident in your offering,
and see how that feels. Mm-hmm. Right? It's wonderful, right? And it's a moment between you and the other person. It really is, right? And like, there's nearly endless reactions to it, and it's a game you can play with yourself your whole life. Right? How people react under those situations, and you can turn something that feels nervous into something where you're drawing your own personal boundaries, and you're now going to insist on them, and that this will assist in the feeling of you walk away. There should be fucking music to this.
Have your own theme song. Yeah, right.
And all it was a handshake. And it was something that was uncomfortable, and you've taken control of it. Mm-hmm. What was it? What else was on the list?
People hearing your testosterone prescription at the pharmacy and getting hit in the crotch.
Yeah. All right. People overhearing your prescription for testosterone in the pharmacy. Loads of people get prescribed testosterone for loads of things. Mm-hmm. That simple. It's like the idea that it will register to the person behind you that you must be trans because you're getting
a visibly biological female getting testosterone. Yeah.
Again, they're worried about fucking whatever's wrong with them, and everybody else guessing like that whatever they're on is for something to do with their arse. Do you know?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And again, take it as a test of masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says something, have a pre-prepared something that you might say back. This situation will never happen in your life, but you'll feel better if you.
Sure. Yeah. Poke fun at it. Like, it really helps with my facial hair, or something. I don't know.
You're like, this is not the groin. I need help.
Right.
In whatever format you want to do it. If you want to embrace it being about trans, or like, I mean, you can even flip it on the other person and say, what were you taking it for? million things you can do with it. Just let it go. But they, like this one, nobody's ever going to say anything to our fucking pharmacy.
Yeah. No, it tends to be in our worst nightmares and not in reality. Yeah, things are always worse than it
half the
actually
cure in fucking pain.
Right. Yeah.
And then there was the last one after pharmacy.
Getting hit in the crotch. Yeah.
Getting hit in the crotch, right? Yes. One trans man was expressing that he was in a job where he kept getting hit in the crotch and was having difficulty pulling off the reaction. Right. Broadly speaking, you can claim anything as a miss because the only guaranteed hit comes from underneath. So if something hits you in the front, like you'd have to be unlucky for it to actually hurt you because it's only contact with the testicles that hurts. Like this, like the sack or the penis, you know, doesn't no, it doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
Contact with the like the bit that you're never going to, or the bit that I think that is the Mount Everest of crotch reactions is actually in the fact that if anything moves on a trajectory towards my crotch, I'm out of there like a cat when you hit something behind them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's not how you behave afterwards.
Yeah. That's very that is
It's
a very astute observation for me to notice, because even as pretty solid as I am as far as my confidence level goes and not being too terribly insecure about some of those things, I absolutely have found myself, because I work with dogs in my day-to-day life currently, and I find myself often turning myself away when the dogs go to jump up on me, because that's where I've often seen biological men, get punching bagged by these dogs jumping up essentially, and that does end up hurting. And so I found myself just switching into that mindset, because for mimicry's sake, to be kind of more in line with that, and by turning my body and closing my legs and turning away from it, just to give the indication that I have something to be concerned about, to be in alignment with that biological reality. And even in those moments, I find myself going, what the fuck are you doing? Like, does it really matter? Are they actually paying attention to that? And even if they were, they're sure as hell aren't going to say anything about it. Like, most people are not going to question, they don't dare. Yeah, they don't dare. I noticed that my dog hit you where your balls should be, and why doesn't that hurt? Like, think about the question that would have to be asked. And while I really appreciate people having the courage to come forward and ask me questions about the transgender experience and all of that, just for the sake of having those conversations with people so that we can both learn from one another, and them feeling safe enough to do so, they just most often do not happen. And so,
so just to put that in, like, it's a funny thing, but just to put it in a neat little box, if for some reason you feel compelled around this, right, any hit from the front can be dismissed as a miss. Right? Haha, that was lucky.
Right.
Right. And if you get hit if you stand on a shovel or whatever, I don't know how this happens, right?
Sure.
But right, and you feel the need to play the role, like anything less than falling into a black hole of pain and being off this planet momentarily is shot, right?
It's falling short. Yeah.
There is not, like, you can crawl up on the ball and pretend to die and not react to anybody for 20 minutes, and it's perfectly understandable.
Yep. No.
But, like, as I said, the only thing, and other people don't notice it. So, like, when I said to my wife, something along those lines, that it's not getting hit in the balls, it's in fact the reaction to anything coming near them that will be difficult to feign. And she was like, yeah, but sure, how often does stuff come near your balls? And I'm like, every fucking breakfast.
Yeah, right. I work with tools, madam.
Dodging and weaving because my kids are young, like, you know. That would do it, you know.
Yep.
And that happens all the time. They're going around the place like this. So, right. But it's imperceptible to my wife. She doesn't even know it's going. It's not something that's
that's true. That's very true.
And so, like, it's a funny thing, and I know it wasn't put forward as like this is what's hurting me today.
Sure.
And it was meant to be funny, but I don't think like. I would strongly imagine that maybe 1 in 500 trans men will find themselves in this particular predicament, right? And what I would say is, if you get a clunker from underneath, right, and now everybody's looking at you and you're having flashed, right? Yeah. The things you could say are, if you want to be masked off, you say, "Good job, I don't have balls."
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Or if you want to be masked on for this situation, you can say, "Who knew there was an upside to testicular cancer?" That will fucking make everybody turn around and walk away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that will deflect interest real quickly.
Right. It's very common for men to only have one testicle. And you could say, "Fucking thank God, I've only got the right one left."
Yeah, I was gonna say, thank God it was sleeping on the other side. Yeah.
Or even down to the more gross of who thought there'd be a benefit to your balls sticking to your leg.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could cover for that.
You know, and the moral of the story with all of these things is, if they make you uncomfortable and they're mysterious, if the thoughts of them are anxiety provoking, like, arming yourself with what you're going to do when you find yourself in
beforehand. Yeah, right.
Is way better than like avoiding it. You know.
Yeah. Confronting it.
And this is it. Like, if you're having difficulty, like, I'm sure the toilet thing, I'm laughing about it, right? But I'm sure it's a bigger thing, right? When I try hard, maybe not for you, right? You're older and you're a bit more, you kind of know what's going on in bathrooms to the extent of, even if you get a pang of it, you're like, no, stop.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I can envisage it being just a girl going into a boys' toilets is a bit creepy, kind of. I'm sure for the girl, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I will put it up to you. Okay, you wish to express to the younger audience members, like anybody's watching me, into what hour is this for?
Well, I mean, when this gets posted, it's going to be up for posterity. It's not live streaming or anything like that. So, yeah, it's going to be up there forever.
But like, if you've got anxieties around all of this, then you've got to set yourself the challenge to get up there with the urinal, and however you're going to manage that. I recommend those little cup things.
Yeah, personally, I have no qualms with going into a stall and going to the bathroom, sitting down. Because to try to pull the anxiety that I would get trying to pull off peeing at the urinal, no way, would not.
Challenge for yourself.
Challenge. Oh God.
No more sitting down to pee at home.
Oh shit.
If it's something that, when you think of it, causes you anxiety, is a dragon to be slayed, and there is huge personal benefit to be made beyond the task itself in addressing this. This is practice for talking to your mother about your uncle abusing you.
Could be.
Your dragons out there.
One way to think about it.
Just keep smashing the dragons.
Yeah, right. Which, by the way,
embracing
that
conversation. This is how we encourage younger men to embrace the masculine. Yeah. You know, get the sword out at the right targets appropriately. Prepare yourself in advance, and think, and don't shy away from it, and use those negative feelings as places for work. Anxiety is a big one. I've been stuck with anxiety. I've been like frozen in my car, burning. I've gone in, I've scaled up to that, and I've come back out of it without taking any medication. And after the episode, the worst episode, I said to myself, it can't get any worse than that, right?
Yeah.
And I said, later on, I have to work out. Like, I got myself in one of those situations that happens to a lot of people, where you can't make appropriate recompense for feeling guilty about things. Right? You can't just apologize and make it right. That's a fucker. Right. Okay. I've got kids. I have to find a way to actually get the car on and go. Right. In that, I said to myself, "There's no way it can get any worse than that." Right? And I'm like, I have to fucking work this out. And so I found the time to get away from myself. Okay, what can I actually do, if anything, about this? And try to formulate it into something. It took me fucking ages to even think of things that I could do to improve. And what I found was there were certain places and people I had to meet that was triggering it all.
Yeah.
And like I had no choice but to actually go there. And
yeah, exposure therapy. Yeah, absolutely.
But I genuinely couldn't, like, the not doing it was worse than doing it. It was something I had no choice but to endure, and I was attempting to work out how to endure it, right? Not how not to, right? And did I leave? Yeah, of course, anybody can just pack their bags and fuck off. There was always the option not to deal with it, I suppose, but I didn't view that as on the table as an option. And as I was trying to work through what to do, it started to ease. And I never got a definitive kind of, if I do X, Y, and Z over X period, this should work. I never got that, right? And all it was me kind of going, right, but not thinking it was wrong. I knew what it was all about. I had it connected to me. I didn't think there was anything I could even do about it, right? I just had to endure it, which is kind of really bad stuff in anxiety, because it's better if you can pinpoint it into something you're not doing and then you do that and then yay, right? And in all of that, it was like, all it is trying to fucking do something about it. I didn't shy away from it. I acknowledged it. I addressed it, even though my addressing of it was ineffective. And the practice changed my mind's relationship with this anxiety.
Yeah.
And so, like, I like it. And I say to people, it was like, you feel anxious? Yes. Did you get froze? Like, what? I was like, did you feel like you were being electrocuted slowly?
If that were a thing. Yeah.
Because of what level of anxiety are we talking? Is it the type of anxiety that you can do something about, or something you can't do? Is it something you can experiment in and find out what works? Because there's loads of different situations like that. A very, very close friend of mine, and I love him dearly. And his demon is that he got into heroin. He met a girl who wasn't involved in any kind of drugs at all, and then he got her into injecting heroin, and then she killed herself in an overdose. And then he was able to get clean and move on with his life. Fucking haunted, right? Absolutely haunted by this. And through the practice of he embraces the pain as a form of punishment that he gets from the anxiety. It's like flagellation.
Yeah.
Right? And he grinds his teeth and he pushes through it to justify it. And what's going on there is really like he's focusing on his family and his kids and pounding out a steady life, which is hard for somebody who lives in chaos, right? And like his endurance of the pain is the therapy, right? He ain't asking anybody to take that pain away or give him something. And like when I think about, okay, there's trans people saying super fucking high anxiety. So all the big YouTubers talk about having high anxiety and medicating it away. Like, whatever about trans men. For trans men, if this masculinity you have is not connected to the penis, it's up here. The way that we have discovered to deal with that is to turn and face it, right? Even like, and identify, can you do something? Can you not do something? All is not lost if you can't do something about it. So if the person who we need to apologize to is dead, right?
A little bit of a problem, yeah.
And you're stuck with this, right? You can even sprinkle in, he probably knew what he was doing and felt guilty about it while he was doing it, and this was his first worst fear come true. So it's not like he can even excuse himself through ignorance, right? And like that never stops feeling bad, right? But he's pushing through it, and he's being a family man, and he's found a way to exist. He's had to go through the death of the father without his father dying because of all of this. Right? His father won't have anything to do with it, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, right, they're talking about this discomfort and anxiety, and they're talking about it in the masculine sense, right? Right, you've got to break it up as to what it is. You've got to really look at it, right? And you've got to say, that's where there's heat, there's light. Fucking biblical shit, right? Another night I'll tell you about the guy that talks like that, right? And we've a tendency to turn our back to heat, right? And we need to turn around and take it in the face, right? And we need to give it a name. No, fucking David, philosophically speaking, to call it what it is, right? And we need to confront it like a dragon. And like, it doesn't matter. Like, all you need to do is change your mind about that, right? And say, okay, I'm going to try this approach. I put the fucking tablets down. It's going to feel horrible.
Right.
Got the tablets there, right? But I have to stick my head in for a minute and have a look around, start identifying things, and see if I can make proper connections, right? Like, if your anxiety is like, if you feel your anxiety is connected to the fact that people don't react to you as if you're a man, right, in the peripheral, and this is causing you great anxiety, you've got to break that up. That's, you can't focus at that. You won't get to know what's that like until like you get that 5 minutes after you realize everybody's still treating you like an unaccomplished male.
Right. Yeah, it's that external locus of control versus internal locus of control argument, where if you want something to manifest in your outer world, you first have to manifest it within yourself. And the anxiety factor is not something that I ever suffered from, and even trying to get other people to see me as a certain way, any kind of discomfort I ever felt was just in recognizing that there's going to be some social awkwardness during the ambiguous androgynous transitioning stage itself, when you're not passing as either or per se, you know, right off the get-go, and people are giving this weird waffling like, she, ma'am, sure, how can I help you, you know, kind of thing, because they don't really know how to respond to you. So my anxiety, if you want to call it that, or discomfort, was only ever just associated with that awkwardness that I would perceive from other people. Personally, for me, never, and maybe it's because I transitioned later in life and had a pretty strong sense of self before I did that, was never seeking validation in that way, or have had any anxiety over not having something reflected back to me as how I saw myself. But absolutely, the people that, you know, there are tons of people that you could be speaking to right now, lots of transgender people who experience that anxiety of not being seen the way that they want to be seen. And like you said, instead of facing that head on and taking responsibility, an internal locus of control, a sense of control that is within themselves, they put it out on the rest of the world. And that concept is at the seat of so much toxic behavior that we see, right down to the, you know, the radical activists, where they are, you know, attempting to tell other people, you will use these pronouns because, you know, I said so and I need that to be reflected back to me. They are putting that locus of control in other people. It's just, it looks a lot nastier than the anxiety that, you know, you're talking about from people, just because they're not being reflected the way that they wish to be. And they don't, they're not
Yeah,
tyrannical control there.
it's like, what are they asking for? The Truman Show?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want people to react to you as your representative gender, did I say that? Oh, whatever. Right?
Whatever. Yeah.
If you want to invoke a reaction of other people, you don't demand this. You make it happen. Like, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be so hard for trans women. Trans men, no fucking excuses. Get your arse to the gym.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Getting over being shorter than other men, that's a masculine challenge.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you are not the only one.
Half of men are below average height.
With that problem. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very few people get to walk around feeling tall. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Welcome.
How you handle that will be part of how you define your own character. Like, what would you do if you got a giant nose?
Yeah, right.
Loads of men have fucking massive ears.
Oh, let me tell you, it doesn't look like much, maybe because I've actually somewhat grown into my ears, but holy hell, it was Dumbo when I was a kid. I had giant ears. So yeah, that's we've all got something.
But you get two levels of masculinity whereby some people embrace the aesthetic and, you know, try to get their body fat down so low you can see their muscles individually, right? And then you've got the strongman competitions, and they're all big fat guys, right? Mm-hmm. And when, you know, if you're posing for photographs, that's what that is, you know. Yeah. Like, if you want men to think you're great, you go lift the boulder up and put it on the barrel. You know, it's and I would, like, I see a lot of trans men going down gym bro route. Those men really struggle with this sense of feeling like men, right? And they seek the validation of women to make them feel like men, and that's what they're doing. Right? It's not the path.
No, not at all.
If you want to feel like a man, that's not the path, right? Also, I also see lots of unhealthy performance-enhancing drug use in female to male transition. Mm-hmm. Like, You're almost like all of those things make your voice squeaky, make your fucking libido go away, make your dick shrink, and there's huge costs these bodybuilders pay in all of the ways you're taking fucking hormones to do it that way.
Right.
Right. It's like, if what being trans is for them and the ultimate validation is the like lustful female gaze, if that's what they're after, then right. If you want a trophy, even a trophy in the feminine form, that a trophy, whatever the representative is that your wife gives you when she feels safe with you and she feels your loyalty and she trusts you and she can be yourself around you and all of that. Like, that's the bit that actually feels good.
Right.
That's the bit that's got you dancing to John Travolta, whether or not the neighbors are looking. Like, like going to the gym and having photographs and having loads of people hit like on your fancy photographs. And like, fucking hell, even the one, this trans men, or, used to be a woman and they're fucking gym bro.
Misplaced validation. Yeah.
Like, that's going home and feeling high anxiety and crying and feeling lonely and feeling like people don't know you. Like, sorry. This is just the harsh reality that we have to try to come to terms with if we're going to progress as individuals and as a community of people all trying to get on together, There's another thing about the fraternity of men as well that seemed, it came under threat at Christmas, with different people in the group having different opinions on COVID and vaccinations. And
right.
This fire was happening anyway, and then we had 3 of the older men die, like, real back to back. And we were all at the funerals together, and this lit the fire on the COVID and the vaccination debate.
Right.
And I had to stamp my foot and say, like, we're not here because we agree on COVID.
Right. Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to have a very diverse group. You can only find a diverse group of people, of men that want to express their masculinity in a healthy way and do it together in a way that benefits everybody. Like, you can only really, like, it's hard to maintain the diversity. Everybody's trying to fucking split us up, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a fairly white environment, so I don't have any issues. There's probably going to be black fella coming through at some point, but we're so far past that by the time it's going to happen. It's not going to be an issue. Right? So you've got all of these tensile factors of things that are outside of what we're doing, that other people are trying to keep people divided on for their own nefarious purposes, politics or whatever. Don't get me wrong, great sympathies for Black Lives Matter. Their observations of American culture has given me an awful lot of insight into my own culture here. Right? They don't need my support. Right. My point being, I don't bring anything to it that's not it, right? And that's quite important. Women can't do that. Right? They actually need to be more aligned to each other to feel like a group and safe, and they control each other. And there's a dominant one that's asserting it all, just for fucking doing the same thing. But like, they appear at least to need to be more on the same page for the sake of cohesion on a lot more things in order to be able to, so like, I mean, I'm trying to do my bit on Twitter, arguing with people about disharmony and disconnection and trying to make sure it doesn't come into my group. And like, you will need to be like consciously aware of this, that like, you're going to have to engage with loads of people on stuff that you only kind of a bit agree with.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And you're going to have to kind of go, we agree on this bit and we're going to work on this bit together. Don't even fucking talk about that. I can't I don't want to listen, don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. And make whatever progress you can make.
Yeah. Yeah. Staying on track.
Yeah.
It's tough to do.
And these are the sacrifices you're going to have to make for the cause. Right. Lots of dirty shit got done in the early days of anything decent.
Yeah.
You know? Or anything that, and like lasting change takes an awful lot of time. We're not changing the world for ourselves to live in it. We can go, I want fucking this way. Right? I would have loved to have been born into a world where fucking as a teenage boy there was a men's group for me to go to talk.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
With older men who knew what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And had some kind of do this, this is the goals, these are the targets, off you go.
Yeah, right.
Listen to whinging and whining, welcome to fucking life. Here you go. And it's not there, like, and we need to build it, right? And like, you know, there's no point in complaining that it's not there.
Right.
And if trans men want to be part of it, it's a very valuable insight that they can bring to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because funny enough, in the documentary I mentioned earlier on, there was your man said, in fact, this is a very feminine space. Even though what it is an all men's group and they're exploring their masculinity.
That is very true.
They do so via the feminine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's that feminine trait of emoting and sharing in that way. Absolutely. It's a very feminine trait.
And so there's like on your exploration of masculinity, there's going to be a need to also bring your femininity with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? In whatever, and try to portion this out in a nice yin yang kind of way.
Yep,
you know?
absolutely. I agree.
And then like when you're married then and you've got a wife and you kind of have that trust, yeah, there you go. Like this gives you a golden opportunity, like for the sweet window of 15 days per month. you have the opportunity.
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have the opportunity to be about 80% yang, right?
Yep, you are absolutely right about that.
There'll be realms of your life, like say when I'm in working, where I can be very yang,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I've got somebody else being really yin.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, we bring out different parts of us. To say that it's static, we're kind of, you know, we're all, not only are we all a mix of masculine and feminine, but we are employing different skill sets within each of those depending on the situation, where it's not a static thing. So.
And so I would say that along the route to feeling masculine, a relationship with a woman taken to the degree of having depth and understanding and sense of loyalty, connection, is actually a really big part, because then you don't have to be your own yin and yang to not be crazy.
Right.
It's like I joked to you the other day, and I even laughed at myself because I never expressed it like that before. I said, my wife encountered something and she said, that's what I've got you for. Right. And I was like, right. She turns around and she says, well, when people get upset, I translate human into ape for you.
Yes.
And there is a truth to this. My wife actually deals with my own family, right? My mother and my sister, right? And their partners, and organizing the kids as cousins to meet.
Sure.
And like, if I was on my own, I would have to be both yin and yang in equal portion, right? So, like, on the path to embracing the masculine, having a strong feminine presence in a partnership with you, right? Really, really helps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It allows you to be a man more, in more ways and in more opportunities.
I agree. 100%. And not that a relationship is, you know, or if people really want to play the celibate role or the monk lifestyle, some MGTOW guys where they really just, you know, like the Thinking Ape, Stardust, on YouTube. He does a lot of videos as a thoroughly celibate guy. I'm not entirely certain that it's not coming from a place of just tons of trauma from toxic women in his life, but regardless, I do think that the vast majority of people would be best developed in a mutual, you know, relationship with their, you know, opposite in some ways. Like you said, yin and yang. It doesn't have to be male female. It could just be, you know, different components of masculine and feminine coming together to, you know, interact and play off each other's strengths and weaknesses to further develop as an individual, because you just can't do that thoroughly on your own. And that's okay for some people that, you know, choose to be that way. It's just absolutely, if you're doing it in a healthy way, getting into that kind of relationship is the only way to keep, you know, moving up with that development.
Yeah, like MGTOW, I don't think it's going to, I don't envisage how the Transmen journey kind of gets into that, you know. Like the political rights type side of it, where they're talking about changing laws and whatever they're on for. That legitimate, come on then, let's hear your argument, you know. Like this kind of, there's loads of them pretending that every woman out there is their ex-wife. It's just pathetic, you know. But I also see a lot of pain, and I see they've got nowhere to go. They've got nobody to talk to about this that can kind of empathize, and this is the result, right? I was listening to a detransitioner the other day, and I got this kind of like realization that in lack of therapy, or like, no, they had lots of therapy, right? As a surrogate for somebody they can trust and talk to, they were doing their video blog. I'll watch that back again now, a second, now that I've had that idea. I'm like, yeah, there's something in that region going on, right? And so, like, the MGTOW thing is a little bit like that, right? Because when you try to be the best father you can be, and you get involved with a family, you have to detach yourself from most of male life, right? At least temporarily, and you try to reintroduce it. But when you reintroduce it, you do so by bringing your own kids into it, you know? And then when those relationships fall apart, those men really do get left alone without us having a tradition of what they do next. You know? And that's where a lot of the MGTOW stuff comes from. And like, yeah, like there's loads of fucking so many people. You can find thousands and thousands and thousands of women to complain about that are saying fucking stupid shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Boring, you know. There's no insight there either, you know. It's not like they're saying, okay, how can we collectively move together in
right? Yeah,
an direction?
It's just a bitch fest, is what it is. Yeah, no solutions.
Yeah, I get, like, I have a little bit of exposure to incels through people that I know, where the I is a really fucking big giant capital. It's highly involuntary. And like the pain is incredible, and to see the way they're portrayed, you know, and they're like, I don't want to be. This isn't something I'm trying to do.
Yeah, right, sure, absolutely.
I've got to 40 and I've never actually spoken to a woman that wasn't a relative of mine, and it's not my fault. They all ran away because I'm fucking hideous.
Yeah, sucks.
I'm like, you know, so you've got a little bit of anger in there too, right?
Of course, yeah.
The divorced wing of like YouTube therapy for MGTOW don't take any of it seriously. They're all shouting into the void, and do you know what? If all they've got to talk to is a camera, it's better than not talking at all.
Yeah, vent the frustration. Certainly, that's better than not, because it'll come out one way or the other.
If my wife ever divorced me and run away with the kids and the fucking somebody, the neighbor or something like that, and I have to endure that, then I can kind of go, okay, here's how we might healthily approach this situation and start trying to build traditions, or at least formulate the questions properly, you know. But I don't think that it's not there, right? I'm busy. Right? Somebody else take that on. I don't know what that feels like. I do know that I'm 100% convinced of my own marriage. So if that turns out to be wrong, like, I will fucking know.
Yeah, sure.
And like, yes, a lot of my sense is wrapped up in my family. Like, my sense of being, like, meaning, purpose for being here is wrapped up in my family. So I think I would handle them dying in a car accident better than I would handle her running off with someone else, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, like, I'm not being harsh on them, right? But like, to those men, I would say, up the fucking mountain, come back whenever you're ready. Right? This talking into the camera stuff, yeah. Right? But the real work that you're preparing for, and maybe you're putting words on while you're talking to the camera, is on your own up the mountain.
Yeah, right.
But that's what you're, that everything you're saying, everything you're doing at a philosophical level is preparing yourself for that.
Yeah, training for the actual scenario.
Yeah. You don't even know they're doing it, perhaps, but that's what I think is going on. You know? And this is why it's so different to radical feminism. Because, like, the extreme end of the other end of radical feminism, where they're not making sense, and it's like, you know, death to men type stuff. They're expressing extreme pain, like, and you know, they have like, their older women just didn't talk about it. Again, same. It's a very similar issue. You know? And we've had stuff come out in Ireland. They found fucking 500 babies in a septic tank of it. None of your fucked up horror movie stuff, like. And there's a lot of people turning to their mothers and saying, oh, why didn't you fucking do something about it? And so it's not like they're getting better treatment, but they have to fight that battle, you know. The mothers need to step in and tell the young screechy ones, stop airing your knickers in public, all right? And deal with it in whatever way they've got to work out. In the meantime, I sometimes think people, especially when I'm in the YouTube sphere, right? Their view of the demographic of the world and their own country appears to be skewed.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like, I think it's about 80% of people are either a child, a parent, or a grandparent. And this is the most profound thing in their life. That's the primary identifier. Beyond man and woman. Right? The people that don't fit that, off you go, like, right? Whatever you're doing isn't important. The human project is what we're doing.
Yeah, right.
And society is built around two things that are uncompromisable. If we get them wrong, we're fucked. We have to survive. We have to reproduce.
Right.
And if what you're doing isn't orientating us towards these goals, it doesn't get to be called good.
Right.
And in that way, we can say whether there's God or not, or which one you believe in. Not, if there was ever a fucking 2 commandments written, that was them. Yeah. Right? Every fiber of every being, of everybody, almost. Right? So, like, when we're talking about things in our society that are like not that, right? It's like you can't interfere with that, right? Or if you do, like,
Big consequences. Yeah.
you're getting shot to the moon in a fucking cannon if you're wrong, right? And whatever group you're representing is going to be a chapter in a history book, you know?
Yeah.
Never to resurface with a big fucking stamp. It damaged our children.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, whatever the plan is, whatever the goals are, whatever changes you want to make, it will not get passed into common society if it is in conflict.
Yeah.
With
With
whatever
the very
doing.
principle of existing. Yeah. The very principle of continuing to exist. Yeah.
And like, again, Black Lives Matter threw up a challenge to the nuclear family. Fucking fascinating topic. Listening to people speaking about what they felt was wrong with how we set our families up.
Right.
And the idea that you need a village to raise a child. I fucking love that. Do you know? I'm not really down with what again, they're great at criticizing society, but not so great at perhaps at the solutions. I don't necessarily think that their recommended actions will lead to their predicted outcomes.
No.
Right? I do think they have to fight for it. Nobody's going to give it to them. Yeah, might have to get a bit messy. You know? Stop lying, and it might work. Just like when it comes to feminism and MGTOW, just as a trans man in that experience, fucking stay away from it. They don't know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they're all venting hurt, and it's not their fault. They were raised badly.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Stay out of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like, don't see it as your mission, and you know, like it's almost there. It's almost there to begin, right? And I think you have a golden opportunity, Artemis, you know, for this channel and kind of where it's going. You know? And you're making enough sense without compromising for people like me to kind of go, I'm curious about this whole thing. It's throwing up some philosophical questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to engage. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of yeah, you've got it all laid out to you. If you can, even if you can just add the proper tagline to Trans Men, you will undo the drag queen with the kids.
That's the hope, anyway. If it's possible, that's the hope.
If it's possible, and then sure, it's a personal journey too. Like you know, we're all on personal crusades, journeys inside and people around us. You know? And that brain's failing, it's too late.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. I can imagine by this point. I mean, certainly it's only 8:30 on my end, but I'm even starting to slow down, bog down in my thought process.
And I've probably repeated myself several times already, so I'm running out of material. Maybe.
Even if that's the case, it's to repeat yourself with some different words. It might communicate finally to somebody who's been listening in such a way that they understand it. It makes sense to them. You can say something 10 different ways until something finally sticks for someone. So even if you haven't repeated yourself, it's quite all right.
And hey, look, like it'd be great if this creates questions for people.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
And me, you know, like. If someone wants to go, right, okay, if somebody wants to come to me and demonstrate that they understood what I said and then come back at me, fucking A.
Mm-hmm.
If their problem is they didn't get it, you know, I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, there's any number of reasons. Either they weren't ready to hear it, didn't have enough information in their brain to be able to put it together. I mean, like for me, I had to start putting to understand myself. I had to take pieces from so many different disciplines, and not all of it made cohesive sense at first. Until, as you know, as I built them all, it started to become a more, complete picture. And at some point it just, everything all clicked. This is related to this, is, this, and supports this. And then it was all of a sudden there. But that was only after a couple of solid years of researching and learning and listening to lectures. And so I can only imagine that potentially if somebody hears this, it doesn't land, they don't quite understand it. Maybe they just haven't quite been a part of the conversations that we've been having, so it's not all the pieces that are there, or again, that they do not have yet all of the knowledge that they need in order to, the experience even, to begin to relate to some of these things. So that is okay, but guaranteed there'll be lots of people for whom this information lands quite well and unlocks something for them. And
Great.
that's why we talk.
Yeah, and like I'm eternally curious about all of it, and I'm excited to see what way it goes. I'm not personally affected by any of it. I just find it like, you got me at the philosophical level. It's like, yeah, okay, fucking yes, transmen are men, kind of, like, yeah, all right.
Right.
Next, let's get on with it. All right. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Good. No,
okay,
cool.
you want to be a man? Let's go. I'm not going to continue to argue that trans men aren't men, because that's so shallow when you think about what men is. But we've got a language problem. We need another word.
Yep, I agree. Yep, there's lots more to explore there, and not get hung up on the definitions so much as exploring all of the nuance within it. The definitions are important, but it's only a start. So.
I think that you have to grow. You yourself personally, artists, need to grow into being confrontational with the people, spreading messages that you conflict. And you are preparing yourself. You know, and see what you're doing. You know, and get ready to slay the big giants. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's all to play for. You could write your name on the stars. You know, you could go down in the history books. You know? There could be people in 100 years' time where all of this is totally fucking whatever, right? And the battle has been won. And there's a book with your name on it saying the first person to make sense was.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, you never know. And what a crazy thing that would be, certainly.
And then when you look at such a big target, if you only achieve like 1% of that, that'd be fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's far more than the 98% of anybody on this planet ever contributes.
But like, yeah, and I would encourage you to think about life in these terms and your quest and your project. You probably already do. You sound like you do.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, it'll be fun along the way regardless. I will make it so.
And just remember, when things don't work or they go cringe, you leave like that.
I'm gonna come up with that dance, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna choreograph this thing, and there's gonna be some video that shows up, maybe with these projects that I'm gonna be doing here soon, and it'll just end with that little bit of dance at the very the tail end of that. You'll see it.
Your emergency dance.
Right. Awesome.
Cool. Well, it's been a great evening. Thanks very much.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And we're going to do this again for sure. And I'm always open if there's something that you think of that's kind of picking in your brain a little bit that you feel like we need to expand on more specifically versus this, awesome conglomeration of touching on just about everything that we've done. I mean, I would love that. And of course, I'll be thinking of stuff, and that as soon as I think of something, I will, if I don't catch you before your season starts, certainly by the end of it, I will have something that needs unpacking. So
Cool. All right.
all right.
Good night. Enjoy your
Good night
evening.
to you. Thank you.